very crisp, what your mouth not so quietly waited for. Chocolate-covered noise.
C&H from Hawaii, like the special price it comes from C&H.
Eric Estrada's Birthday Bash, Tuesday at 3:30.
We interrupt our regular program schedule to bring you this live special report from ABC News.
This is an ABC News special.
It began as a rocket, performed flawlessly as a spacecraft. Now must return to Earth without power in a steep glide to home.
The next giant step. Continuing coverage of the landing of Space Shuttle Columbia. This portion brought to you by the new Chrysler Corporation, who invite you to test drive their new 1981 cars and trucks. From the ABC News anchor position at the Dryden Flight Research Center at Edwards Air Force Base, Frank Reynolds.
Good morning from Edwards Air Force Base in the California desert, a place that has already earned a secure place in aviation history. In 1947, it was here that man first flew faster than the speed of sound, and the first man-made sonic boom was heard on Earth. There are some approximately 200,000 people gathered here today on this base and scattered all around the desert area for miles around to witness the return of Columbia, and that will happen in about 1 hour and 20 minutes from now. Right at the moment, astronauts John Young and Robert Crippen are still in orbit. They are over the Ascension Islands in the Atlantic, heading down toward the coast of southern Africa. In about half an hour, they will be west of Australia, just south of India, over the Indian Ocean, and at that point they will fire their engines for the de-orbit burn to drop them out of Earth orbit and begin their descent eventually to this dry lake bed here in California. In mid-Pacific, they will begin their descent through the Earth's atmosphere at an altitude of some 400,000 feet. And at that point, of course, the blackout of approximately 15 to perhaps 18, 20 minutes will occur. That's going to be the very tense time when communications will be lost between the ground and the spacecraft. And there will be concern about whether they have actually survived the re-entry, whether those troublesome pesky tiles that we've heard so much about will stay on. Then after blackout, they'll come down, descend through the Earth's atmosphere about 600 miles off the California coast, crossing in over Monterey Bay, just north of San Luis Obispo, as you see here on the map. They will then head for, looking for Lake Isabella as a landmark for Edwards Air Force Base, where we are right now. As they pass directly over the field at Edwards Air Force Base here, they'll be at about 50,000 feet, traveling at approximately the speed of sound. They will then make a wide left turn to put them in the proper glide path approach to come back down here on this desert sand, runway 23. Now this will be the view they will have, the dry lake bed as it was photographed yesterday from a chase plane, the ground really rushing up at them, because this is going to be a steep and a very fast fall from way up there. They'll come down in a very short time. We should have some television pictures, some spectacular shots from cameras scattered all around the west coast, you might say. There was one that is on Anderson Peak at Vandenberg Air Force Base that actually got a shot of the orbiter in orbit a short while ago as it made its last turn over this part of the world before going all the way around once more to come in for the final landing. Well, we have quite a crowd gathered here, not just the spectators, but also many of our experts who are going to help in providing with continuous coverage of this space age first today. Jules Bergman, our ABC News science editor, and Gene Cernan are here on the base. They are about 8 miles away from me here across the dry lake bed, and they are in a position where they will be able to see the Columbia still in the air as it zooms right by them just before it touches down. It'll be traveling then at a speed of more than 200 miles an hour. Just got to go for They just got a signal from Mission Control in Houston to go for deorbit. So everything is all set. The weather conditions are perfect. There's visibility was 40 miles at sunset here, or at sunrise here this morning. It's probably even a little better than that now. Winds are practically non-existent, just a few miles crosswind, not enough to bother them at all. But the mission is being controlled, of course, from Houston at the Johnson Space Center, and Max Robinson is there now. Max, it looks like a good day.
Frank, there's no doubt about that. In fact, here at Mission Control about 15 minutes ago, they described astronauts John Young and Bob Crippen and their Space Shuttle Columbia as being in super shape. The word super has been used a lot on this mission. The astronauts have had a very good morning. They've been running 20 minutes ahead of schedule, as a matter of fact, in terms of doing all the things they have to do. There was one bit of a problem. Shortly after midnight, the astronauts were awakened when they got a warning signal in their cabin that indicated low temperature reading on one of 3 auxiliary power units. Those units produce pressure for the hydraulic system, which is necessary, of course, to bring the space shuttle back down through the atmosphere and touch down at Edwards Air Force Base. The astronauts were up 1/2 hour before their scheduled wake-up at 3:50 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and when they finally did get that scheduled wake-up, it was an unusual reveille, to say the least. Here's how it went.
Good morning, boy. Oh, John. Time to get up for the big splashdown today. And both of you could use a shower. Smells like Young's been into the instant breakfast drink again.
Hey, wake up, you guys. Get up. Come on, you better get to work. Come on, get to work. You guys got 300 government agencies to support up there. Come on.
Good morning, Columbia. This is Houston, and we have a real-time 482 for you. A real-time after that? That's affirmative. Real-time 482, and that last wake-up song, we'd like you to scratch out splashdown and insert touchdown.
Oh, okay. We appreciate that.
What you see here now, that should dispel, incidentally, what you just heard, any notion that the people at Mission Control have no sense of humor. What you're seeing now here are the final television pictures from space this morning, taken around 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time from the California coast, Baja Peninsula, as the sun was coming up, and you can see that edge as the sun came up on the western coast of the United States. What you're seeing right here is a telescopic picture, powerful telescopes, from the Anderson Peak Tracking Station. And we had not expected to get this. You can clearly see the Space Shuttle Columbia, that bright dot in the center of your screen. The astronauts, incidentally, donned their emergency ejection suits, or pressure suits, which they had not worn while they'd been in orbit, at about 9:15. Then the payload bay doors were closed for a final time, necessary to achieve re-entry, of course, shortly after which the astronauts informed Mission Control they were eating their snack, their final snack, in space on this mission. We didn't find out exactly what it was. It could have been anything from turkey tetrazzini to bran flakes. And they aligned their navigation gear, the IMU, for return to Earth. The next event, of course, will be the deorbit burn, to return them to Edwards Air Force Base finally after achieving re-entry into the Earth's atmosphere. Frank?
Thank you, Max. Well, in a little more than 20 minutes now, at 31 minutes, 52 seconds after the hour, the deorbit burn will take place. The first time those engines have been fired in space, really, to begin their descent and bring them back down through the Earth's atmosphere. At that point, they will be over the Indian Ocean, south of India, and that's going to be a very critical time indeed, because very shortly thereafter, they will begin the blackout, and a tense time for all. Well, we're going to go to Gene Cernan and Jules Bergman in a moment, but our coverage of the flight of Space Shuttle Columbia will continue in just a moment.
Plymouth Reliant K, the 1981 Motor Trend Car of the Year, takes on citation in a test of style, ride, and drive. 100 GM owners did the judging.
I was very much impressed with the design of the Reliant.
The Reliant K was a very smooth ride.
I could put more people in the Reliant K.
Reliant K was judged superior overall to Citation 70-30. And with 4-speed stick, Reliant has better gas mileage.
Test drive and compare Reliant K to Citation. We're so confident we'll pay you $50 no matter which car you buy.
You're about to see the fastest animal in the world. Captured. Captured by a 35mm film that's faster. Kodacolor 400. Because the faster the action, the more you need Kodacolor 400. The fastest 35mm color print film from Kodak. America's storyteller.
Talk about value. This larger candy roll sells for the same price as this roll, and there's nothing in the center of the smaller roll. These are Tootsie Pop Drops. Their centers are filled with delicious chocolatey Tootsie Roll and surrounded by the same tasty hard candy as Tootsie Pops. Tootsie Pop Drops, 85% more weight, lots bigger in size, a terrific value. 2 great tastes and individually wrapped for cleanliness. Tootsie Pop Drops at your favorite store in rolls or bags.
No experience, no job. I could do that job, but who'd give me the chance?
Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines.
We don't ask for experience, we give it. You won't read it in a book, you live it. Pick a service, pick a challenge, set yourself apart.
Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines. What a great place, it's a great place to start.
Tuesday, I'm happy to... Now we're about to get a message between the spacecraft and the mission control in Houston, so let's go to Houston now to pick that up. Lots of noise out here this morning. Jules Bergman and Gene Cernan are here at Edwards Air Force Base with me while we're waiting for the word from mission control. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning, Frank.
I think we're about to get this right about now, aren't we? We just get a warning beep. Well, I don't know about you, gentlemen, but I think there are some butterflies here, despite all the calm confidence and the certainty and the scientific precision with which all this has been worked out. Actually, there's been a change in the landing time, you know. It was supposed to be, what, 1:28, and now it's set back to, or set up, really, to 1:22 Eastern Time.
Frank, butterflies galore. We're at the end of the runway 23, where they'll land. We've been watching the shuttle training aircraft flown by NASA pilots practice that alarmingly steep descent to give the final word to the Columbia on the winds. The winds are non-existent. I've never seen a more perfect day, Gene.
It's a beautiful day, and it's like a preview of the forthcoming landing of the shuttle here. It is going to be pretty spectacular. I think I ought to be wired to find out what my pulse rate's going to be.
Well, Gene, you know, as I said, despite the fact that everybody knows that conditions are just perfect and the astronauts are in good shape and their spacecraft is functioning perfectly, what we are about to see has never been done before. They have never brought this kind of a space plane or a flying machine back from Earth through the Earth's atmosphere down to a powerless gliding on a relatively tiny spot on the globe when you consider where they've been maneuvering for the last 2 days. Suppose you, I know you have a model over there, Gene. Could you describe for us just exactly how that is going to happen? I mean, particularly, I think you can do it better than I can, with your model of the orbiter, to show how they come down through the Earth's atmosphere in order to make sure that they survive it and that the spacecraft doesn't just burn up.
Surely, Frank, they will very shortly. They're losing contact now, I think, for the last time prior to the deorbit burn. And they have been going in orbit in a heads-down position, but forward. They will maneuver the spacecraft on board through the aid of their computers, but manually on board, and they will put the aircraft or the spacecraft in a position where it is upside down and coming backwards. And they will fire their deorbit Ohms rockets right here to slow the spacecraft down in order so that the Earth's gravitational pull can exert greater force on them and then decay them back into the Earth's atmosphere. After they fire their Ohms maneuvering unit here to slow the spacecraft down, they will actually pitch the spacecraft down towards the Earth. The Earth is below them now, They will pitch a spacecraft down to some, 18 degrees or so, and they will actually be pointing below the Earth's horizon. But they are now, some 20 minutes away after they make this maneuver from the actual entry interface, or the place at which they actually contact the atmosphere at about 400,000 feet. And as they move along in orbit forward now, they will actually, the horizon sort of will drop because of the curvature of the Earth, will drop below them, and by the time they get ready to re-enter, they will actually be pitched up about 40 degrees above the horizon, and in a sense will sort of start pancaking or mushing into the atmosphere in order to decrease the heat loads that they will see.
Gene, in that burn, which is calculated to be 297 feet per second, that'll slow the orbiter down by only about 300 miles an hour, but that's enough to drop it out of orbit.
Well, the reason the orbiter stays in orbit is because it has a certain amount of speed which produces a force against the pull of gravity. And now when they reduce that speed, it reduces its energy, and now the energy from the gravity of the Earth tends to pull them closer and closer to the Earth.
5 minutes, 48 seconds away from deorbit burn.
It sounds like the spacecraft's in good shape, the crew is in good shape, and I think we're in for a very exciting morning. And Frank, a comment that you made that this has never been done before, we have never flown aircraft, and that's what this is going to become, an aircraft at 10 and 15 and 20 times the speed of sound. And there is a transition period between the 17,500 miles an hour when it's a spacecraft to the point at which we see it land here, where it has to slowly become an aircraft from a spacecraft. This is really a first. It's really a first for the world of airplanes and spacecraft, and the transition that takes place between them.
Gene, and there's one area that worries the engineers. It's the controllability phenomenon between 3,000 down to Mach 1, the speed of sound, in which they're worried about uncontrollable roll. And that is also a lesson we'll see demonstrated today.
Frank, we have a spacecraft and we have an aircraft. We had to compromise in the development of the shuttle. It's not the perfect aircraft. That's why when it actually comes down, you'll see it coming down very, very steeply. If at this point in time we could grow wings, then we could make the wings 3 or 4 times as large as they are, the size of a 747. You would see it generally glide in, but we don't have that opportunity.
Yes, Gene, I would like to ask, though, and I think this is a question that concerns many people, why is it so absolutely necessary for the spacecraft to be designed in such a way that there is no second chance? Here they are coming down from Earth orbit, and they have to glide down precisely to the right spot. Now, I know this is a long runway out here, but still they've got to hit it, and they've got to hit it right. Would it have been completely impossible to have placed some sort of propulsion system on board the spacecraft so that in the event a mistake was made, that they could at least go around again and come in, as happens to all of us sometimes?
Well, Frank, that's a very good question. As a matter of fact, that concept was considered during the design of the shuttle, and if I'm not mistaken, I think we actually included
an early version
an early version that had engines on this shuttle spacecraft for that purpose and for the purposes perhaps of ferrying the aircraft. But when we considered the weight constraints and the complexity of taking those engines that we need for landing into orbit, we reviewed, and I was still in the program at that time, reviewed some of the training requirements that would be required to fly this aircraft as a glider versus a powered airplane. We decided that the trade-offs, in other words, the safety factor, if you will, or the second chance factor of having engines on, was not worth the problems of development and the weight cost in taking these engines.
It added, as I recall, Gene, 10 tons or more of weight, which meant you had to have that much more propulsion to blast it off the Earth from Cape Canaveral and get it in orbit. It vastly complex the whole problem.
Now, remember, of course, I'm a little parochial and biased, but John Young's a Navy pilot, and he's a Navy carrier pilot. He's been landing on small runways for a long time. I think this is just going to be another challenge to him based upon his past history.
Yeah, but Gene, that's not really much of a challenge. This is the world's longest runway, and it was deliberately picked this way, and these first 4 flight tests are being done. That runway out there is so big that if all the brakes on the orbiter fail and all the hydraulic fluid is gone, he can still safely roll it out and have 2 miles of runway left.
I agree. Eventually, of course, the shuttle will land on smaller strips, but believe me, from 150 miles in orbit, this is a small runway. This is a small desert, and it's not like having the whole Pacific Ocean to land in. It'll be challenging, and I know John wants to land precisely. He doesn't just want to bring it home. He wants to bring it home and land precisely and professionally where he's planning to.
Frank?
Well, thank you, gentlemen. Very graphic description, Gene. The previous tests, of course, have all gone well here, but the tests have involved separating the Orbiter Enterprise, a practice vehicle, if you will, from the top of a 747, and then dropping it down in, of course, the same basic glide path pattern that will bring Columbia down today. But, of course, the difference is that Columbia is not coming down from the top of 747 that took off from here. It's coming down after being a rocket, after being a spacecraft, and now suddenly becoming a plane and a glider again, and making that tremendous re-entry through space, through the Earth's atmosphere for the first time in this kind of a configuration. You can probably hear trucks and all sorts of things going by us here. Some of the noise, I think, is from the VIPs being ferried down to a tent that is about 1.5 miles away here. We understand that there are going to be some 6,000 people accorded that VIP status, many of them political figures and Hollywood celebrities who are here not only to see the Columbia, but perhaps even to be seen seeing the Columbia. When the spacecraft does finally roll to a stop, and by the way, we think it's going to be right out over here somewhere, not too far from our anchor site here, a convoy of vehicles will move out very quickly to greet it. The initial staging of the convoy after landing will be about 1,250 feet upwind of the orbiter. Some of these trucks and vehicles are quite elaborate and complicated, and they have very essential equipment on board to make sure that the astronauts are able to get out of the they're able to get out of the spacecraft safely. This is an animation that you're seeing right now of the deorbit burn. As you see, the spacecraft is configured for the firing of the engine in order to drop it from orbital speed, drop it out of the clutch of the Earth, you might say, of orbital speed, and bring it back right down as a free-falling brick, the way some people have described it, an 80-ton brick, which will bring it down eventually right here to Edwards Air Force Base. As I started to mention before we showed you that animation, a convoy of vehicles, ground vehicles, will rush out to greet the orbiter once it rolls to a stop out here, and Ken Kashiwahara has been checking up on just what's involved in their work. Here's Ken.
Once the Columbia has landed and come to a stop, the NASA Control Center here at the Dryden Flight Research Center will dispatch a convoy of 18 vehicles.
Columbia, this is Convoy 1. How do you read? Over.
After going through rehearsals like this one, the ground technicians know exactly what to do. The first to reach the shuttle will be technicians dressed in protective suits. They will take readings to determine if any explosive and toxic gases are leaking from the shuttle. If the winds are calm, a wind machine will be used to disperse the gases. If high levels of hydrogen are detected, the astronauts will be taken out of the orbiter immediately. If not, the technicians will hook up an air conditioning unit which will cool the orbiter and purge it of any remaining gases. Then the so-called white room, similar to the one used during launch, will move up to the crew hatch. A doctor will board the orbiter to briefly examine the astronauts, and about 45 minutes after the Columbia lands, the astronauts will set foot on Earth once again. While the astronauts are undergoing a more thorough medical exam, their spacecraft will begin a more extensive checkup too. Then 8 days from now, if all goes according to schedule, the Columbia will be latched onto its perch atop a 747 and ferried back to Cape Canaveral, where it will be prepared for its next mission. Ken Kashiwahara, ABC News, Edwards Air Force Base.
Thank you, Ken. That report was prepared earlier. Ken Kashiwahara is now making his way to a place called Weed Patch, California, which we have selected as his location, not because of its exotic name, but because it is in the path of the sonic boom. It's about 100 miles west of here, closer to the coastline of California, and they should be able to hear the sonic boom as it comes in at considerably faster speeds than the Columbia will be traveling at as it goes over the dry lake bed here at Rogers. We should get it here, too, but it probably won't be as, as shaking as it is up there at good old Weed Patch. Well, we'll continue with our coverage of the mission of Columbia, the space shuttle, after this message and a word from our local stations.
With my arthritis, getting in and out of the tub can be frightening. But with arthritis strength bufferin, I can ease the minor pain for hours, move better. It gives me extra strength when the arthritis first flares up. But arthritis strength bufferin adds extra protection from stomach upset ordinary aspirin can cause. Sure feels good to have the extras of arthritis strength bufferin.
Arthritis strength bufferin. Extra strength, extra protection.
When your retirement is all play because your money plan is doing all the work.
You really believe in those IDS ideas.
When we help your business grow because we helped your taxes shrink.
You really believe in those IDS ideas.
Good money ideas from your IDS representative. When they help your dreams come true.
You really believe in those IDS ideas.
Ideas to help you manage money from IDS.
For a complete wrap-up of the voyage of Space Shuttle Columbia, watch ABC's World News Tonight.
What's one of the most sensitive parts of a woman's body? Her foot. So we make KABC cuddlers. KABC cuddlers start with a super padded insole for real comfort. Next, tiny pockets of air from toe to heel cushion every step in even more comfort. Then the styles. Pretty, pretty, very pretty. KABC cuddlers. Shoes you can live in. Special $10 value tote, free with purchase of KABC cuddlers.
New KABC cuddlers now at your local Red Cross shoe shop.
Right now, White Westinghouse is offering $25 or $50 factory cash refunds on these appliances at participating dealers. And while you're there, register to win a one-week interval ownership title to your own Captran Resort condominium for life, or win one of 50 Florida vacations at a Captran Resort. All prizes include airfare for two on Eastern Airlines. Cash refunds and move to the Sun Sweepstakes. Good reasons to see your White Westinghouse dealer now.
Available at Airport TV, 6222 Manchester, Los Angeles.
With Alamo brand, there's no need to mix with meat.
Because Alamo's made with grains and real meat and bone meal.
Remember the Alamo.
A reminder to vote in today's election.
ABC News live coverage of the landing of Space Shuttle Columbia continues at Edwards Air Force Base. Frank Reynolds.
Good morning once again from a place where history will be made today when the Space Shuttle Columbia comes down for the first time from space in this kind of a aircraft, space plane, glider, rocket combination configuration. And that will happen in less than about 55 minutes from now. Well, even less than, yeah, about 55 minutes or so from now, at approximately 1:22 Eastern Time. The astronauts, of course, will be escorted down, too, by a small number of T-38 jet fighters, training planes that will pick them up as they come in over the California coast. They'll be at about 30,000 feet, I think, when they first see them. One of those planes will have a camera in it, which will be able to actually give us pictures, live pictures of the orbiter as it comes down. You see the planes are now on the ground there, getting ready to take off. They'll be going up before too long. Now for the latest word from Mission Control in Houston. Here again is Max Robinson.
Frank, we just got word just a few minutes ago here at Mission Control that ignition should have started for the deorbit burn. They are now coming up on a tracking station. They will be able to hear the astronauts in Columbia, who will give them a confirmation of that report for deorbit burn. This is Mission Control, awaiting the transmission from Columbia on whether the deorbit burn has been effective. That burn is to last a bit over 2.5 minutes, or around 2 minutes.
Columbia, this is Houston through Yargady. We're standing by.
Burn was on time at nominal reserve 110. APU. Restart sign also. We got 2 and 3 running now. Yeah, repositioning is complete, and we're about to debrief.
Okay, John, we copied the shortest of all burn reports. And, Crip, we understand you have 2 of 3 APUs running now.
That would indicate that burn took place for just over a minute, from what I gathered, which is a very short burn.
Raj, thank you.
apparently they did not need.
Control, that is nominal at this time to have 2 of the 3 APUs running. The third APU is powered up.
Gene Cernan, tell us what's going on about now.
Minus 5 minutes. We're now at entry interface minus 19 minutes, 22 seconds.
Gene Cernan, why don't you tell us what's going on right now? We understand that things are nominal, that everything is go, that there has been a deorbit burn that is a bit brief compared to previous deorbit burns.
Well, can you hear me there, Frank?
Yes, I can hear you. This is Max.
Okay, Max, it sounds, their burn, as they had updated this morning, was about 7 minutes early. It sounded, as John and Kripp reported the results, it was a nominal burn. They had what they called residuals of 1/10, which means that the burn went almost to a 0 foot per second or velocity remaining to be burned, which is again normal. They are powering up the auxiliary power units. Now, these auxiliary power units power the hydraulic system, which then powers the airplane controls, the flaps and the elevons that they call them, to control the aircraft or the spacecraft now as it starts to enter the atmosphere. Remember, they will transfer slowly from this rocket jet control that controls their position in space to the controls such as an aircraft has. And they'll use both controls and then slowly turn the rockets off. And then at about 60,000 feet, they will be simply an airplane, a glider, with no rocket jet controls at all, controlling the position of their nose.
Mission Control confirms, Gene, that the burn did take place at 12:22:30 Eastern Time, 9:22:30 Pacific Time, and it went well.
Incidentally, Gene, if you can hear me, those are the same auxiliary power units, one of which they had a bit of a problem with shortly after midnight, I believe. Is that the case? The ones that control the hydraulics. Earlier this morning, the astronauts shortly after midnight were awakened by a warning light that indicated that they were having a problem with one of those auxiliary power units, which control, as Gene Cernan told you, the hydraulic system, but they did not anticipate any problems with that because they have the 2 auxiliary units which are operating and are operating well. Frank?
Thank you, Max. Well, I hope that everybody's satisfied that the burn went well, because too long a burn, of course, would mean that they would come down short. And too short a burn would mean they would come down long. And they can't come down short, they can't come down long, they've got to come down right here at Edwards Air Force Base. Well, our coverage of Space Shuttle Columbia will continue in a moment.
Peggy, look!
Wow, an axle! A hard move like that deserves some soft trident.
Can I, Mom?
Okay, as long as it's trident.
It's good.
And 4 out of 5 dentists surveyed recommend sugarless gum for their patients who chew gum.
What if I do a double axle?
You get the whole pack.
Trident sugarless gum.
Recommended by moms like me who care about teeth. Enjoy cool, refreshing Trident mints, too.
Johnny, you know more Europeans vacation in Spain than anywhere else?
Really?
They go to see the Alhambra or Granada and all the great art.
That's nice.
They love Spanish food. I am hungry.
Me too.
Johnny, there is more than castles in Spain.
I know.
And good sports, too. It's all right. Lower prices on food, fast, and fine hotels.
Come to Spain. A lot more vacation for a lot less money.
You like?
I like.
Okay. It's all right.
America has become overly dependent on foreign oil. Suppose that foreign oil was cut back. To help control our energy future, we need to find and develop more oil, gas, other energy sources here in America. And we need to use less. If you'd like more information, it's available in the Energy Independence book, free from Shell. Shell believes there is an answer to our energy problems. It's to find more and use less.
If you suffer from minor arthritis pain, listen to what these people say about Aspercream.
I really felt like I was rubbing the pain away.
The relief lasts for hours.
Aspercream contains salicin, a strong non-aspirin pain reliever which penetrates right to the point of arthritis pain.
Aspercream gives me relief without upsetting my stomach.
There's no odor.
I'm saying that I am really pleased with the relief I got from Aspercream.
Aspercream, strong, penetrating relief right where you hurt.
Wednesday, the greatest American hero plunges into new territory.
My mother didn't come home last night.
But the search takes a definite detour.
Listen, I'm lost.
Will this mission really take off on the greatest American hero? Then, on Aloha Paradise, Leslie Nielsen stirs up old memories for Debbie Reynolds, and his wife stirs up trouble for them all. And Donnie Most gets a one-way ticket to Dump City when his lover goes for another guy. Then, Dan hunts for mass murders on Vegas.
Tomorrow on ABC.
It is now 46 minutes and 56 seconds before touchdown at Edwards Air Force Base, and 13 minutes and 57 seconds before the spaceship Columbia enters the Earth's atmosphere, which is called entry interface or Earth interface. Hugh Downs is standing by at the shuttle in the cockpit. Hugh?
Yes, Max, it's interesting that although the deorbit burn has occurred, the craft is still in orbit. It's just that the orbit is now deformed to an ellipse that is intercepted by the Earth itself, which brings it into the Earth's atmosphere, not straight down, but obliquely. And curiously, it's flying in a backward position, a very strange attitude for a craft that's shaped like an airplane, but it doesn't matter when there is no air. The craft must be turned around, pitched around really, into a nose-forward attitude as it approaches the atmosphere, and then to a nose-high attitude so that when it comes in, the braking effect of the atmosphere will then impinge on the famous tiles. Everybody's confident here that those are going to work. There will be fiery heat on re-entry and a blackout period during which time we will not hear the voices of astronauts because ionized gases make a shield against radio transmission. When they come through that, it will be comforting again to hear those regional accents and the calm cadences of astronauts. It's not only nostalgic, it's reassuring. A set of controls will come into play then that have been utterly useless on the mission so far, and that's this one right here, which is the stick, and on my forward of my right foot here you see the rudder. These control the elevons and the rudder, and of course the ship will be able to fly after that fiery re-entry from 14 Mach, over 8,000 miles an hour, 50 miles up, down to the half Mach or a little under that it will land at. It's going to be handled by computers, but I'd be very surprised if John Young doesn't have his hand on this stick, because in the unlikely event that there was a total failure of all 5 onboard computers, there are 2 other great computers aboard, and that's the brains of Crippen and Young, and they'd be very capable of landing this ship where it belongs. Right now there are ground control electronics that would allow the plane to fly right on in, even through flare. But in the event a contingency field was chosen, if for some reason they couldn't land at Edwards, both those men are perfectly capable of bringing this to a textbook landing, and that's what we anticipate here. Max?
Hugh, there's no doubt that everyone here at Mission Control does in fact anticipate a textbook landing. That deorbit burn, as John Young just radioed a few minutes ago to Mission Control, did take place on time, on schedule. It was perfect. Within 11 minutes and 25 seconds from now, we will have entry interface at about 400,000 feet from the Earth when the space shuttle enters the Earth's atmosphere, and we will get the first test of those tiles, the thermal tiles on the underside of the space shuttle Columbia. And of course, it's 44 minutes and 2 seconds to touchdown at Edwards Air Force Base, where Frank Reynolds is. Frank?
Thank you, Max. If we had been back here just about 7 seconds earlier, we would have heard a tremendous roar as the T-38 chase planes went right above us here on their way out to get into position to pick up Columbia as it comes back in. We've also just heard from Launch Control that they will have, after they touch down, about 15 seconds for whoopee, as it was put, and then it will be right back to work because there will be lots to do. It will take them approximately 45 minutes after they touch down before they're able to actually egress, as they say in the space business, get out, as we say in English, of the spacecraft. Well, Lynn Scher is down about 1.5 miles away from me here on the edge of the desert with the VIP tent, and quite a few interesting people there, I gather. Lynn, good morning.
Well, good morning, Frank. Yes, indeed. The VIP tents, 2 VIP tents are right behind me. Exactly behind me, this white tent is the VVIP tent, the very, very important persons. Next to that, the sort of ordinary important persons. We're told that about 2,500 individuals were invited. NASA doesn't yet know exactly how many have responded. So far, I have spoken with Steven Spielberg, the director of Close Encounters of the Third Kind. He and George Lucas from Star Wars are both here, both of them in their black hats that they also wore at the launch down at the Cape at Kennedy Space Center. Governor Jerry Brown of California is also here. He, too, was at the launch. Very loyal fan to the space program, and they're back here today. The highest-ranking member of the Reagan administration here is the Air Force Secretary Vern Orr. Also, there are a number of movie actors, quite a few politicians. And it's interesting, it's a different scene from the Florida scene because, of course, this is the desert. It's a much drier atmosphere, and it seems right now a little calmer. I won't tell you that it is tenser. Some of us have been a little tense, worrying, wondering what is going to happen. You don't really feel that, but it is quieter than it was at the Cape. Down there, somehow, there was a lot of cheering even before everything happened. Incidentally, these people here, the VIPs, also have loudspeakers. They can hear mission control. They can hear everything that's going on. They will hear the air-to-ground transmissions. And in our vantage point, 1.5 miles from you, Frank, we're going to see it a little bit before you, and then we'll get the tail end of it. One thing I should point out, one of the things that's going to be mentioned a lot is the Mach numbers at which this craft is landing. Mach, of course, is the speed of sound, and it's how fast sound waves travel. It's important because it's when an airplane goes in or out of the sound barrier that it's most critical time, and it's at that point that we're going to hear that great big sonic boom that you were talking about before. So I will stay here with the VIPs. We'll let you know what they have to say and talk to a few of them later. Frank?
Okay, Lynn, thank you very much. And we'll also, of course, be keeping track of the two very, very important VIPs, John Young and Robert Crippen, who very shortly now will be beginning their descent through the Earth's atmosphere on their way back home here to Edwards Air Force Base. Our coverage of Space Shuttle Columbia continues in a moment.
It's no secret a lot of people believe American cars aren't filled as well as Japanese or European cars. Well, I'd like to take you through this factory to show you the spirit of our workers, the level of our technology, the quality of our cars. Then no one can say our cars don't stack up. We can't take all of you through this plant, but we can give you $50 to test drive and compare our cars to qualifying competitive cars, and we'll pay you no matter whose car you buy. We're not foolish, we're confident.
The new Chrysler Corporation.
Okay, I'm beautiful. Now, on to the party.
Well, I want proof of this.
No, you don't. We're late already.
Don't worry, this is the world's fastest developing color. You see it in seconds now, not minutes.
Well, there's your proof. Go on, get it all out of your system.
The Time Zero One Step and Time Zero Supercolor film are made for each other. That's why they both come in Polaroid's new Made for Each Other pack.
Feel better now?
Okay, let's go.
You taking that to the party?
Why not? I'm taking you.
Made for each other.
All right, let's go right now back to Max Robinson at Mission Control. We're about to hear the last communication from the astronauts before entry interface. Max?
Frank, this is the last transmission before the entry interface, which will be at 6 minutes and 36 seconds from now.
Okay, please configure AOS. Calgary is pit doors are coming closed at this time.
Roger, we copy and we're looking at the numbers.
Roger that. For Dr. Findell, the wideband mission recorder is on and running.
Roger that, and the doors are closed.
Well, we're sure they're not talking about the payload.
Start up the...
Okay, we're ready.
Again, the last transmission from the Space Shuttle Columbia before...
We see the third APU starting up now. Due telemetry from Guam.
Interface.
Okay, brake systems pressurized.
Roger, we see one up. Looks good.
Services for aerodynamic flight.
We're just about to go to Bravo.
An APU is the auxiliary power unit. There's 3 of them, and they drive hydraulic pumps, which control the aerodynamic surfaces on the wing of the aircraft and on a rudder for control in the atmosphere. Mission Control now is verifying all the final systems of the spacecraft.
Roger that.
4 minutes 40 seconds before entry interface.
Gene, there's not much that they're saying or want to say at this point. They're just too busy doing their job, right?
The crew is extremely busy, and of course the ground via telemetry is monitoring some of the responses to what they're doing. This is a very tense, a very time-consuming, but perhaps one of the most important parts of the whole mission. Each one gets more important, but at this point in time...
Okay, and we think we got the prop system configured.
The prop system is the propellant system.
Roger that, we're looking.
Configured properly.
Now assuming looks like no delta T. Okay, we're showing out 85 miles, do about 24.5.
They're talking...
24.42 exactly.
They're speaking about the pressures on their reaction control system, rocket jets that will help guide their...
Moving right along, John.
Help guide their entry during the first phases of the entry interface.
A little bit longer. And the reaction control system itself is outdated as they begin to hit the air.
Usage right now is normal.
And I believe John said the RCS, which is a reaction control jet, fuel usage has been normal, which says he's been doing a pretty good job of piloting, although he's had a lot of help from the computers.
We would explain, Gene, that the computers don't fly the machine. They do fly it, actually, but only in response to the pilot's commands.
The pilots control the spacecraft throughout the
Columbia,
mission.
Houston, no delta T required.
What does that mean, Gene?
What does that mean, Gene?
Well, I believe he said delta T, or delta for temperature change. It probably means turning on the heaters to warm up the reaction control jets so that they fire efficiently the first time. If they're too cold, they may sputter. They may sputter slightly and not give a...
Hey, Columbia, we're 50 seconds from LOS. Everything looks perfect going over the hill. Nice and easy does it, John. We're all riding with you. Thought it was brought in here.
I think Joe Allen, the capsule...
I thought it was brought in here.
The Capcom was right. They've got a lot of co-pilots on this entry.
Millions of them, you might say.
You betcha.
LOS means loss of signal when the radio signal is gone and they can't talk to mission control anymore and we can't hear them until the entry interface is ended, until the S-band blackout is over, some 10 minutes later, blackout being that phase of the flight.
10 seconds to LOS, we'll see you about Mach 12.
And that's an interesting call. The Capcom said see you at Mach 12. In other words, see you when you've slowed down to 12 times the speed of sound.
has loss of signal. Columbia is 1 minute 32 seconds away from entering the Earth's atmosphere. We're showing 34 minutes 21 seconds to touchdown at Edwards Air Force Base.
Still about 24 to 25 times the speed of sound. That's their speed. So the atmosphere itself, there's no propulsion system, nothing else that slows them down from this time at all except the atmosphere. They will tend to feel a very slight G-force or acceleration as they slow down, because remember, they've been in zero gravity. Now this force will tend to force them into their seats. And for the first time, they will slowly regain the G-forces that they'll be subject to here of 1 G on the ground when they get back.
And this is the single most critical time for the spacecraft, to see whether the wings hold up, the heat tiles stay on, the structure takes it.
The temperature will start building up at what they call entry interface. What happens is the energy, they are slowed down and the energy is dispelled in a form of heat. And of course the heat has to be absorbed and then dissipated by the spacecraft. They will be in the middle of a red glow, a red fireball, but unlike Apollo, they will not have the trailing flame behind them because the tiles simply dissipate or radiate the heat, where in Apollo and in Gemini, it was like a piece of charcoal. It actually flaked off and burned away for cooling, and therefore we had, on Apollo, I know, we had a trail of about 15 miles of flame and fire behind us. This will not occur with Columbia. It will be just a single red or orange ball.
Gene Cernan, the astronauts on the shuttle Columbia have now entered the Earth's atmosphere. About 10 seconds ago, the Space Shuttle Columbia entered the Earth's atmosphere. We will be out of touch for about 20 minutes with the astronauts. We will not hear from them until 20 minutes from now. And at that time, we will know if everything is indeed A-OK as Mission Control expects it to be.
Frank and Matt,
Yes.
I think it's interesting. This is another first. You know, we've never come in frontwards before. You know, people maybe think astronauts are funny for flying upside down and coming in backwards. But in fact, John and Bob Crippen will be coming in forward. They won't be able to see much at first because they're looking so high above the horizon of the Earth. But they are coming in forward. We've always come in backwards before, and it was it was difficult to explain why.
Gene, will they actually be able to see the glow of the nose?
Oh, yes, that glow, the nose will be the hottest part. Jules, I believe it's going to be, what, over 2,500 degrees centigrade? Fahrenheit, I mean?
3,000 degrees on the tip of the nose, Gene.
And that glow will just encompass the cockpit, I believe. And when Columbia comes in, it left nice and white and spotlessly clean. You won't see it charred, but I think you'll see dark streaks, burn streaks across the tiles, across the entire spacecraft, indicating the type of environment it went through during this reentry phase. They will definitely see the heat.
Now,
hopefully,
Gene,
if all goes well, they won't feel it. Yes, Frank?
I hope they won't feel it. Gene, you're one of the few men on Earth who knows what it's like to go through that. Tell us about it. I mean, you have no communications. You probably have a sense that things are going well, but you know that there is a possibility that maybe they won't.
Well,
Can you tell us what it's like as you made your re-entry through the Earth's atmosphere?
Well, we of course came in backwards quite a bit faster from the moon than we do from Earth orbit. We really have to concentrate because we're actually guiding. We were guiding. Just like John and Bob Crippen are flying this spacecraft, we had to fly the Apollo to a landing and through that time period of re-entry. It's a very critical phase. You're surrounded by fire. It's like if you can imagine being on the inside of a comet, looking out at a trailing tail some 15 to 20 miles, trailing tail of fire behind you. That's something to think about, but we were there. It actually happens that way, and then the G-forces get very heavy, much heavier than on Shuttle again. We experienced up to 7 times the force of gravity during our re-entry, and it's very difficult even to get your arms off your chest, but you have to because you're flying and maneuvering the spacecraft through this period of the flight.
So there are physical constraints on you as well as what I know would be the case in my case, mental constraints too. I mean, you feel as though you're on the inside of a comet. That's a pretty good description of it.
If you can possibly imagine that. John Young one time said the most beautiful sight of all space flight was the parachutes. That's the next thing you think about. Of course, these gentlemen don't want to see parachutes and won't, but that's what we were looking for after we came through this fireball and knew we were home. As you said, Frank, you know, if you come in too steep, the spacecraft is only built to withstand the Shuttle as well as Apollo. So much heat. And if you come in too steep, they're coming in, they're mushing in, as I say, to reduce the heat load. If they came in like this to dissipate their speed, the heat buildup would be tremendous, and it would be so great it would probably burn the spacecraft up no matter how many tiles they had on it. If they come in too shallow, this spacecraft could skip out like a rock skips off, a flat rock skips off a pond. We could have done that in Apollo also. So the time period is not just critical from the amount of heat you're absorbing and whether spacecraft will make it through that period of the flight, but are you at the right angle? Too shallow, you go out for a week, a day, a month before you come back. Too steep, perhaps, it might get a little bit warm inside the spacecraft.
And they are not just riding it down, they are actually controlling the attitude of the spacecraft, even during this fiery comet-like descent.
They have the flight program in the computers, but they in turn are telling the computers what to do. And it's very critical that the spacecraft, you know, as it starts to pick up the atmosphere, the spacecraft will tend to want to wobble in a sense. And you know, if the spacecraft ever got to a point where it turned around and came in backwards, or it got on its back or side,
it would break up.
It'd break up, it'd burn up. So it's very critical that they control it so that it enters in just at the right angle throughout this entire phase of the entry.
Go ahead,
that
Jules.
entry angle is the single most critical part of the flight, Frank. The transition from spacecraft to airplane. And how much will it roll? How much will it yaw? What will happen to it? These are some of the unknowns. And indeed, no structure, Gene, this large, this is 122 feet long, the size of a DC-9 airliner, has ever attempted to land, ever attempted to come back from space
it's even
and then
difficult
land.
to test in these areas for the amount of forces that will occur.
What are the possibilities for escape, Gene, after they complete the re-entry through the Earth's atmosphere, and they come down and discover that things are just, everything's gone wrong.
Well, of course, if they lost a wing or part of the vertical stabilizer control systems, they still have ejection seats. Of course, that'd be like ejecting out of a high-speed jet aircraft, and of course the shuttle would crash into the surface.
Physically, Frank, they can't eject until they're below 110,000 feet because of the speed.
So they're committed to riding the spacecraft home. And if you can imagine sitting in a cockpit of an airliner and having a Roman candle on the nose of that airplane, just spitting out fire and flame all around you, I really believe that's what they're going to be looking at.
Let's pause for just a moment here because we do have John Young himself talking about the problems involved in coming back down. Jules Bergman talked with him a few weeks ago, just before the mission got underway, about what could happen. Here it is now. John Young, the astronaut.
I've never heard anybody be happy with an ejection seat, Jules. I just don't think you could be happy with it.
I'm a lot happier than I'd be if we didn't have them.
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable thing to do for a first flight.
We have an escape system that works for the range where you have air, which is a place where you like to jump out at when your parachute work. Is ejection seats in here, if you had to use them, are out of the SR-71, and they're very good seats. They handle entry from Mach 3 on down, and I think it's a very good escape system. Of course, we don't plan to use it unless we have to.
Well, that's for sure. It does not strike me as being the most desirable way to leave an airplane.
It's a little bit embarrassing, Frank, to have to do that as a pilot.
So embarrassing, Frank, that many pilots stick with the airplane too long, and there's a distressingly high death and injury rate among pilots who refuse to use the ejection seats. They keep on trying to ride it further and further down. But Young and Crippen are not that way. They're very savvy. They want to save their billion-dollar glider, if at all possible, but they're going to get out if they have to.
Frank, I think maybe we might clear up this loss of communications if we've got a second. They have lost signal because of the tracking station, but in addition to that, when they come in through the atmosphere, this tremendous energy release, the slowing down in the atmosphere, the heat that generates and builds up, produces an ionization or sort of a magnetic field.
A flaming band of gases.
Yes, a shield around the entire spacecraft, almost like what you see in Buck Rogers type movies. And it does not allow radio waves to penetrate through it, so therefore there is no communications with them until this heat and this flame dissipates and they come out of that ionization layer. So it's not just losing our tracking station, it's actually a phenomena of the entry into Earth. If you remember back when John Glenn first flew, it was a phenomenon. Nobody expected to lose a signal when he re-entered communications with him, but we did for a much shorter period of time because he was coming in much steeper.
Okay, they have approximately 11 more minutes. Thank you, Gene and Jules. About 11 more minutes or so before we regain communications with them, and less than 25 minutes before they touch down here. So there's still some time to go. We'll continue with our coverage of the mission of Columbia, the space shuttle, after this word from our local stations.
Friday at 8, 7 Central and Mountain, The Amazing Animals Special with superstar Brooke Shields.
You're looking light all over. You're looking good to me. You're drinking Pepsi Light with a taste that's lemony. Looking light, drinking light, lemon Pepsi Light with its one calorie. Looking light, looking Pepsi Light.
This Friday and Saturday, free Pepsi Light taste samples and coupons at selected Lucky, Stater Brothers, and Albertson stores.
Evita, 7 Tony Awards, including Best Musical of the Year.
You were supposed to have been immortal. That's all they wanted. Not much to ask for.
I kept my promise. Don't keep your distance. I kept my promise.
Evita at the Schubert Theater.
She got Candace, Candace. I got candy. Candace, Candace.
Artificial insemination tonight at 4.
ABC News live coverage of the landing of Space Shuttle Columbia continues. And now in Houston, Max Robinson.
Well, the spaceship Columbia is now over the Pacific, or at least it should be over the Pacific, as it descends toward Edwards Air Force Base in California. You're looking for tracking right now. It is 9 minutes before we will hear from the astronauts, John Young and Bob Crippen, aboard the Columbia, because they're in that electromagnetic field that prevents communications. So in about 8 minutes and 50 seconds, we'll be hearing from them to find out how that space shuttle is handling. And right now, of course, it is coming down over the Pacific Ocean, or it should be coming down over the Pacific Ocean, headed toward Edwards Air Force Base. Don Putty, flight director who's in charge of bringing this shuttle down on this day, had informed his team a little earlier that they will have 15 minutes, or 15 seconds, I should say, 15 seconds for celebration, and then right back to their jobs, because it's their responsibility to be in control until the astronauts are on the ground. Frank?
Thank you, Max. Well, you've heard so much about the tiles. They lost one, they damaged some others, and a lot of commotion about them and everything, the questions about their reliability. Right now, this moment, is the time when the tiles have to do their work. They've got to be doing it right now, hanging in there, and not zipping away or falling away. Otherwise, we could have a very unpleasant consequence here. There's no indication, of course, what is happening because we're out of communications. But Ken Kashiwahara has prepared a report for us on just how these tiles were put together and the importance of their function. And here is Ken now. Well, we'll have it.
They are cut and shaped and sprayed and baked and checked and rechecked. And when the tiles are finally installed on the space shuttle, they form a heat shield that prevents the astronauts from burning up. There are more than 30,000 tiles covering 70% of the orbiter's body. When the shuttle re-enters the Earth's atmosphere, temperatures on the orbiter's surface will exceed 2,300 degrees. But because of the tiles, the astronauts should not feel the heat at all.
A great deal of it is re-radiated. That which is not is slowly absorbed by the tile. But it is such a poor conductor of heat that the vehicle has landed before this heat has migrated through the tile. And by that time, of course, ground air conditioning equipment and so on is plugged into the vehicle, and it's kept properly cool.
The tiles are made from a lightweight material called silica, which is sprayed and waterproof. The black coating quickly radiates most of the intense heat off the surface. The silica absorbs the rest of it. But for the tiles, the road from the laboratory to the shuttle was far from trouble-free. During initial tests, the tiles couldn't withstand the heat, and the bonding agent used to attach the tiles to the shuttle proved inadequate. Then, when the shuttle was ferried from California to Cape Canaveral, some tiles were damaged. Aerospace workers repaired the damage and changed the bonding agent. Now, officials are convinced the tiles will work. They must. If only one strategically placed tile falls off during the mission, it could mean disaster. Aerospace officials are always looking to the future, and workers here already are attempting to improve the tiles by making them stronger and less susceptible to damage, and by making them lighter so future shuttles can carry bigger payloads. Ken Kashiwahara, ABC News at the Lockheed Missiles and Space Company in Sunnyvale, California.
Thank you, Ken. Ken Kashiwahara filed that report earlier. He is now situated about 100 miles west of here in a place called Weed Patch, California, which is directly in the flight path of Columbia as it zooms in over California in the mountains and the desert here. And that is where the sonic boom is going to be heard most loudly. Ken, are you all set to hear it?
Frank, we are indeed, and there really is a weed patch, as you can see, and I'm standing right in the center of it. It is a farming community, a tiny community right in the middle of the desert, as you said, about 100 miles or so from where you are. And weed patch is not totally unknown. The people here tell me that John Steinbeck wrote his famous novel, Grapes of Wrath, only about a half block from where I'm standing. Now, the real reason we're here, of course, as you mentioned, is because the orbiter is scheduled to pass almost directly overhead. It will pass just to the south of us, and about 5 miles to the south of us, at about 107,000 feet, traveling at about Mach 4, or 4 times the speed of sound. Now, the orbiter has a plus or minus footprint of 30 miles, which means the sonic boom should be heard on 30 miles on either side of the flight path, and we are almost, as I said, directly under it. We don't know how loud it will be. We should be able to hear it, and of course, when it does come over, we'll be here, and we'll tell you exactly how loud it is. Frank?
All right, thank you, Ken, and we hope to be back there. We have less than 5 minutes now till the reacquisition of signal. As I say, we hope to be back at Weed Patch in time to hear that great big sonic boom. But less than 5 minutes now till the reacquisition of signal. One of the important things is going to be the function of the landing gear, whether they are retracted properly. That won't happen until they are almost down on the deck. John North has prepared a report on how critically important they are. John?
The Space Shuttle will be approaching its landing without power, but it's going to be coming in faster than any winged plane ever did before. The shuttle comes in from the west. When it's directly overhead, it's still 10 miles high, still faster than the speed of sound. As it continues east, several miles past the lake bed, it starts a large bank. All of this to cut its speed. And cutting its speed is critical because the landing gear can only be dropped when the shuttle's speed is less than 345 miles per hour. The landing gear must be dropped manually from the cockpit. For this, there is no computer control. If the gear doesn't drop after the pilot activates it, there's an automatic backup system that opens the doors with an explosive charge. All of this must be done quickly. The gear is dropped when the shuttle is only 19 seconds from the runway. The shuttle will touch down at more than 200 miles an hour on tires similar to those designed and used on the B-1 bomber. The brakes are conventional design, but they're made of metals that make the brakes lighter and stronger. One of the reasons the dry lake bed was picked is that it gives the shuttle more than 5 miles to brake to a stop. And even if the shuttle strays off the marked runway, the lake bed will support the landing. John North, ABC News, Edwards Air Force Base, California.
We are about 2 minutes and 30 seconds away from the reacquisition of signal from Columbia, astronauts Crippen and Young. When that happens, they will be some 600 miles off the California coast. They'll be this side of Hawaii, heading on in and coming in like a barn burner. Well, we'll continue with our coverage of Space Shuttle Columbia in just a moment.
Sorry, no experience, no job.
But where do I get the experience?
Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines. We don't ask for experience, we give it. You won't read it in a book, you live it. Pick a service, pick a challenge, set yourself apart. Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, what a great place. It's a great place to start.
Expanding an aggressive business involves a factor of risk. To minimize it, you must have a firm grip on where you are and a clear view of where you're going. A Quantel business computer can help. For Quantel monitors your current status like any business computer, but only Quantel has Quick Plan, a financial planning aid that projects possible outcomes, so you don't commit resources unwisely. Quantel business computers. We let you look before you leap.
This is Frank Reynolds at Edwards Air Force Base. We have about a minute to go before the word that we are waiting to hear that they have survived the re-entry and are back down the Earth's atmosphere. Now, that word will come first to Mission Control in Houston. Let's go to Max Robinson.
100 feet per second call.
Frank, we're standing by here. Mission Control standing by for Mach 9.
Stand by.
They are now
Mark.
34 seconds before reacquisition of signal from the Space Shuttle Columbia.
Chase, disregard the Mach 9 call. We'll give it again shortly.
No, you just heard them call that back.
Showing an altitude of
18 seconds before reacquisition of signal.
2 C-band radar contact showing an altitude of 165,000 feet. Range to go 410 nautical miles.
Stand by for Mark on 9,700 feet per second.
Hello, Houston, Columbia's here.
Hello, Columbia, Houston's here.
There it is.
Land clear, and we're done Mach 10.
There it is.
At 180 AS.
And we couldn't agree more, John. Your state vector's good. We've got good data in-house.
Okay, and it looks to me like the LOD is nominal. RCN quantity and APU quantity looking good.
Frankly, I'm not sure what this is.
At 9,700 feet per second. Columbia, you got perfect
That again
energy,
is the
perfect ground
picture
track.
of the shuttle from Anderson Peak.
Columbia now 9 times the speed of sound. Flight dynamics
And John,
officer
we're
says
showing you
it's
rolling
perfect.
right. Looking good.
I'm on roll.
You can see the faint speck in the middle of the dark spot.
Rolling now.
Chase will be on time.
Okay.
Altitude 152,000 feet, range 311 miles, speed Mach 8.8.
At this time, we're using a combination of both
Roll reversal complete.
aerodynamic surfaces and the reaction control jets to control the nose
Here we
position.
show you out of 151K now. 8.4 Mach, looking good.
Roger that, Dan. I got a solid tack end locked on tack end 2 and 3.
Roger that, Crip, we're looking. All 3 APUs hanging in there, looking good.
Roger that, we concur.
We have a live television picture from the optical track at Anderson Peak.
Telescopic view
Crossing the
of...
coastline now.
Show you crossing the coast now.
Roger that. We concur.
141,000 feet.
There you
Range
see.
240 miles.
Tack ends, go ahead and take them.
Okay, going in.
And that's a beautiful picture when the camera's at
We're now
Vandenberg Air Force
incorporating
Base.
tactical air navigation system data into the spacecraft. Mach 7.
7 times the speed of
135,000
sound.
feet, range 221 miles.
Columbia,
Dead on the ground
very
track.
quiet to it.
Let's go out in here, too. What a way to come to California.
We can assume their re-entry through the atmosphere worked like a charm.
Columbia, you're out of 130K now on the tracking, 6.4 Mach, looking good.
Roger that.
It's the best test of the tiles we could have designed.
Some test.
Less than 9 minutes, 30
Columbia, your
seconds to
navigate with
touchdown.
that, Dan, is perfect.
Roger that.
They've
Mach
crossed
6,
it,
124,000 feet.
and they're across the
Range
California
177
coastline now,
miles.
headed toward Bakersfield, where there should be a horrendous sonic boom as Ken Cashwahara
And John,
confirmed.
we're seeing near zero aileron trim.
We're seeing 2 tests. Yeah, less than that now.
Roger that, out of 119K, 5.5 Mach.
There's still 5.5 times the speed of sound.
Report.
Roger, we copy.
And as they come overhead here at Edwards, Gene, the engineers have told me there will be a huge sonic boom because the airplane is so fat.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much we'll hear from at this point.
Roger that, out of 112K, 4.8 Mach.
Range 130. John Young rolling using manual control now.
We see Hill at 21 degrees.
Roger that, looking good.
Mach 4.4, 107,000 feet. Range 112.
Almost exactly on the money.
The crew is still using their onboard guidance system, and at 60,000 feet they will begin to use ground guidance system, very much like the airliners uses across the country.
And
Roll
stick
reversal
control.
complete. Control looks good.
Columbia, we see roll reversal complete, control looks good.
Rope's coming out.
And you're starting to get ammonia cooling now.
Roger, we concur.
And Columbia, you're out of 100K with positive C. Looking good.
Ejection seats can be used now.
Beautiful.
Below 100,000.
But they said now if they had to, they could use the ejection seats.
And air data looks pretty good for here.
Roger that, looking good, we're looking at them, and you're coming right down the chute.
Rudder active now, looking good. Range 73 miles.
Columbia, we're go for air data. You're out of 89K, 2.8 Mach.
No need to use any ejection seat as of now, Gene.
There won't be either.
Roger that, we're looking.
Okay, take in finger.
Roll reversal to the right.
Columbia, we see you coming right, looking good.
Okay, 2.5. Time to stand the talkbacks on those landing gear, hydraulic isolation valves. Looking okay, Jim?
Okay, Chris, they all look good to it.
Roger that.
We now have a live television picture from the long-range optics at Dryden Flight
Columbia, you're
Research
coming
Center.
right down the track. The tracking data, nav data, and pre-plan trajectory are all one line on our plot board here.
Roger, we concur.
Out of 70,000 feet at Mach 1.8, range 42 miles.
This is Ken Kashwahara. We just heard the sonic boom as it passed over this area of weed patch. Two sharp cracks like thunderclaps, and it's now headed toward Edwards Air Force Base.
Columbia, we show you very slightly high in altitude, coming down nicely, and the test is to go to off.
Mach 1.3 at 58,000 feet. Range 33 miles.
Out of 56K, looking good.
Mach 1 at 51,000 feet. Range 28 miles.
Columbia, you're going subsonic now, out of 50K, looking good.
Roger that.
Position.
Everything
We'll
looking
escort
good.
them down. And everything is looking good.
Columbia, you're
There's the
approaching the
boom.
hack now, right on the money.
We just got the boom here. She is.
Columbia getting ready to start the big sweeping turn into the runway.
37 Alex.
And Crip, altimeter 3009er.
Roger that.
$38,000 feet. Range 19 miles.
Columbia, you're coming right around the hack, looking beautiful.
First on aboard 30,000.
Control very smooth.
Columbia, you're really looking good, right on the money, right on the money. And we're seeing 1.3 Gs coming around the hack. And turning on to final, your winds on the surface are calm.
25,000 feet.
Now they start that rather sharp descent.
Yes. Mach 0.6. Range 13 miles. 22,000 feet. Control looking very smooth. Speed brake at 40. We have a television picture now.
You're right on the glide slope, Columbia.
That's the time to touch
Right
down.
on glide slope. Approaching center line, looking great.
This TV from the chase plane. $16,000 feet.
Mark 15.
Airspeed 271 knots. Fido says it couldn't be any better. 11,000 feet.
That's real good up in here. The crowd here on the ground can see it now and is cheering.
9,000.
These pictures are being taken from the chase plane. You see one of them here. There is the orbiter. See how close the chase plane is going along with it. There not only to take pictures, but to tell them about that landing gear. Now, this is an ABC camera that has got this picture. And this one, too. Come on in. We can see it now.
Go down. 50 feet. 40, 30, 20, 10, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Touchdown. There's your 10 feet. 5, 4, 3, touchdown. Talk about skipper.
As you can see, mission control jubilant, but they waited a while.
Welcome home, Columbia. Beautiful, beautiful.
She's still rolling along.
Don't imagine who they will take 15 seconds.
The chase planes just went by, roaring on.
We're going to test it out first.
The world's greatest all-electric flying machine, I'll tell you that. It was super.
Okay, convoy's on its way.
We'll stop on the Columbia. We'll stop.
The convoy is on the way now. We can see it moving across the desert. The convoy of vehicles on the ground to make sure that everything is safe for the astronauts to egress and get out.
Control Houston, the unofficial touchdown time.
Thank you.
2 days, 6 hours, 20 minutes, 52 seconds. 2 days, 6 hours, 20 minutes, 52 seconds.
And Columbia, Houston, we're estimating at least 26 more minutes on the ammonia. You're looking real good.
And as Columbia's main gear touched the lake bed, the flight director's instructions were prepare for acceleration.
Well, the tiles obviously worked all right. Helicopters are beginning to swarm down around it now. They're going to be in there for about 40 to 45 minutes before they actually come out. Some of the vehicles that will move up include a white room. Most of the convoy stops some distance away. There is one vehicle that is approaching quite close. That will be the one containing a safety assessment team. They're wearing special suits, and they'll move to about 100 feet of the orbiter.
Roger, we copy that.
They will be checking for any explosive gases left over from the descent.
As a mission control, Houston, we expect the crew to be able to get out of Columbia in about 45 minutes. That's phenomenal time for safing and power down.
Well, they certainly did a beautiful job. They had it in their hands all the way. With the assist of the computers, they brought it down to a landing. And I mean, it is parked on the X out here. Gene Cernan, you've flown with John Young. He's a pretty good pilot, isn't he?
Yes, he's a good pilot. I've flown with John both in space, and of course, a lot of times in our T-38s, John's an excellent pilot. I think we've seen a pretty good example of his capabilities right here. That's right in the center line of that runway.
You know, they make it look too easy.
Cernan, I don't think even you could have done a better landing.
No, you're right. Perhaps not.
Perhaps not.
All right, the rest of the convoy is beginning to move in there now, close to the orbiter.
They've got to wait just a hair longer, Frank, for the ammonia and some of the hazardous gases to be sure they're drained out.
The first person to actually go on board the orbiter will be the crew physician, Dr. Craig Fisher. He'll do a very quick check to see that the astronauts are all right, but I think we've had pretty good confirmation of that already.
I don't think there's any doubt about that, Frank.
Frank, can you hear Gene?
Gene, is this the way it feels to splash down in the ocean and know you're home?
Frank, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Gene.
Yeah, it sure does. I tell you, there's nothing like that feeling of being home. Even when those waves are lapping over the top of the windows, you see that carrier, you know you're home. You know nothing else can go wrong at that point in time. And I'm amazed at the shuttle's capability to come through the atmosphere. I expected more charred streaks or burnt streaks across the fuselage, and we just see that little area around the nose. And it obviously was designed and performed explicitly up there, superbly.
Well, it certainly did its job. Let's have another look now while they prepare to bring the crew out. And as we said, that's going to take some, probably 40 minutes or so before they're ready to actually bring them out and drive them back across over this way. So let's have another look at the actual landing as we're seeing it.
Frank, can you hear me?
Now, yes, Jules, go ahead. We're running a videotape of the landing.
There's that steep rate of descent, 5 times steeper than a commercial airliner, until he flares it out, levels it out here about 100 feet over the runway. The T-38 chase planes escorting him in. Now he drops the gear at low altitude, and he's set to come in.
Frank, it's still after that gear is dropped, he was in a very critical phase, because if he pulled his nose up too quickly and got too slow, he could actually fall that last 20 or 30 feet into the runway. It's a very tender and touchy maneuver that we're seeing him make right there, and he did an outstanding job with it.
And what a beautiful shot, too.
Oh, boy.
That's an old pro.
The only thing missing was the tail hook.
Spoken like a Navy man.
Oh. So that's the landing. The mission is a success. Orbiter has launched off the pad at Cape Kennedy. It's gone around the world 36 times, and it's come back, making a landing for the first time in the history of man in a spacecraft, a space plane, a glider, whatever you want to call it, of this kind of configuration. And you see there the people in their special suits. They are called the SCAPE team, the Safety Assessment Team. It's a self-contained atmospheric protection ensemble that they wear to make sure that they are not contaminated. And they are now checking to make sure that everything is all right before they bring up all the rest of the vehicles that will perform their necessary functions before the astronaut's physician, Dr. Craig Fisher, can go on board. They'll move a portable white room right up next to the Columbia, and they will come out through that. Well, our coverage of Space Shuttle Columbia, now home, continues in a moment.
Ford calls Escort the world car with better ideas from around the world. Plymouth Horizon's an American car with some pretty good ideas, too. How do they compare? In an independent test, 50 Americans judged. For styling, Horizon won. For driving ease and riding comfort, Horizon won. Horizon was rated superior overall to Escort's world car, 43-7. Guess that makes Horizon the world beater. From Plymouth.
Test drive and compare our Horizon to Escort. We're so confident we'll pay you $50 no matter which car you buy.
I've gained so much weight, nothing fits. I'll never lose it for the beach party.
Calm down, Annie. I lost pounds on the Apodrine diet plan. You can too.
Apodrine?
Maximum Strength Apodrine. Its potent hunger-curbing formula helps you eat less and lose weight. Maximum Strength Apodrine.
How much weight did you lose?
Enough.
Lose weight for your party with Maximum Strength Apodrine.
Thursday, an escapee from the smoking clinic hits the 12th.
Ashtrays full of soggy, stinking cigarette butts.
Charming, isn't he? And a con woman takes Louis to court.
$1 million.
But he takes the law into his own hands on Taxi. Then 2020 reveals the scientific facts for those who believe in Christ, those who don't, and those who wonder. Geraldo Rivera's Unprecedented Report will startle you.
Thursday, starting at 9, 8 Central and Mountain on ABC.
Some are born to lead with noble spirit and endless ability, like the Canon A1. The A1 with 5 automatic exposure modes plus manual. To stop action or let it flow. To control depth of field. To add light automatically. To use light dramatically. The Canon A1, born to lead.
Why did gymnast Ginny Barr stop chewing Carefree and start chewing new and improved Chewel sugarless gum?
Chewels taste better.
Why did Chef Guy LaRue stop and start chewing Chewels?
The Chewels, it tastes better.
Why did the Hoboken Halftone stop and start chewing Chewels?
Chewels taste better.
New and improved Chewels is the only sugarless gum with a delicious flavor center. And taste tests prove of leading sugarless gums.
Chewels taste better.
That's what I feel like saying. Will I get killed?
I was just looking at the orbiter here through binoculars. One of the interesting things when you do that, it looks as though they're standing in water, as though the whole craft is parked there in water. But of course, that's just a mirage. That's a common occurrence out here. They're about 1.5 miles away from us, and you can see there are people moving around there now. Members of the special team to make sure that any noxious fumes or anything might be dispelled. There's a big wind machine that is still some distance away, and it's going to take some time before them to get out. Let's have another look now at the landing taken from a possibly different angle. Jules and Jean join in here as we see our videotape from one of our ABC news cameras as orbiter came down, Columbia returned home.
There's that fantastically steep angle of drop, Frank, I told you about. More like not even fighter planes do that, Gene.
We could see it about 38,000 feet as it went into its bank and made this final turn on a descent. It looks so massive compared to the T-38 chase planes next to it. In fact, it is.
Of course it is. Look there. It's 5 times their length, or 4.5 times their length.
We're just reminding John.
That's a 78-ton glider that just touched down safely, a new record.
Just a reminder.
What we're witnessing here, Frank, as we watch a replay of the landing is really a step into the future. We have now ushered in tremendous potential capability technologically for this country. As a matter of fact, for people all over the world.
It can be done.
It was done. It has been done.
It's real.
Yes, and of course, it must also be said, gentlemen, there are people who wonder, still are skeptical about the long-term scientific, if not military value of the shuttle. The military aspects are, if perhaps not known, at least it's generally believed that they are going to be considerable. We do obviously have a reusable spacecraft. Before, we got nothing back except things to put in museums. And we had some very proud people, of whom we all were justly proud, who had executed very dangerous and intricate, difficult missions. But Max Robinson in Mission Control is with a man who was very deeply involved in the design. No, I'm sorry,
But they were unable to get back.
All right, excuse me for just a moment. I made a mistake, not the first one today. And Steve Shepard talked with the designer of the shuttle, one of those who was certainly instrumental in designing it, Max Paget. And he compares what we get back now to what we used to get back from space.
It's a good compromise.
Max Figet was one of the principal architects of Project Mercury in the early 1960s. Recently, we talked to him about the size differences in the space shuttle compared to earlier manned orbiters.
This, of course, is the first thing we flew with this little Mercury capsule. And, of course, this is what came back to Earth the first time we flew. This is what we plan to bring back to Earth the next time we fly. And as you can see, we could put an awful lot of these little capsules in there. As a matter of fact, we wouldn't have any trouble putting the entire command and service module of the power program inside the orbiter payload bay.
I remember, and I guess most of us do, when Alan Shepard, who later went to the moon, became our first astronaut in space on a non-orbital mission in the 1960s. He went up and he came down, and we were all very impressed. This is the Redstone rocket, which boosted him into space. How does that compare to this cargo?
Well, it will, as you see, it'll almost get in there. It's just a hair longer than the cargo bay.
So the entire rocket, which launched our first astronaut into space, could pretty much fit in the cargo doors of today's space shuttle.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Steve Shepard and Dr. Figet. But Gene Cernan and Jules Bergman, I'd like to talk with you briefly for just a moment about this. Obviously, we've demonstrated that it can go up and eventually that it can carry things. But I think the question remains, you know, do we need more than a truck?
Frank, the tremendous thing about this is people can argue the cost of the shuttle, its goals, military hardware, or whatever, but we've witnessed the birth of a new technology right out there, right on our field.
Well, doesn't it all depend, really, on the value of what is carried aloft?
Yes, of course it does.
Not the quantity.
I think we see the use of the space shuttle frequently over the next several years. The cost of what we have been doing in the past will come down, and is predicted to and will come down without question dramatically. Let me say something else I think the shuttle is probably doing right now and will do in the future, as Apollo did, as Gemini and Mercury did. You've got a lot of young men and women out there who have got their minds on a lot of other things in this world besides the kind of thing they've seen out here. If this motivates 1 out of every 10 of those young people to go to school, to imagine, to think, to dream, to me it's worth it. I don't know how we can put that in terms of dollars and cents. If we think about all the millions and millions of dollars that's spent on things such as dope and hashish in this country for young people, I'd rather spend money on something like this to motivate their brains and their minds for the future, their future, our future, than on that kind of thing. It's difficult to lay them side by side, but they're realistic facts of life.
Exactly.
Thank you, James.
You know, this is part of the renaissance of America.
Well, we'll see. You're certainly correct. It's difficult to put a dollar figure or a value on the motivation of the young people of the country who will be the future astronauts or who will be emboldened to undertake adventures of this kind and carry on the pursuit of knowledge, the exploration of the unknown. I guess that's what it's all about. Well, they landed more than 16.5 minutes ago, and as you see, the convoy, the ground convoy of special vehicles are out there now preparing for the astronauts to come out, and that will happen in about, less than 30 minutes or so now. We'll continue with our coverage after this from our local stations.
Sunday, J.R. Larry Hagman, Don Meredith, and David Bowie on Omnibus.
Harry, can we talk? People have been saying you're a little behind the times. I said, not my Harry. After all, 6 months ago, you went through a radical change in your life.
I did.
You switched colas. I've been giving you C&C Cola. We've saved a lot of money, and you like it.
C&C? They don't even have a song.
Break the expensive cola habit. Try C&C.
MPS Chunks. MPS Chunks. MPS.
When dinner time rolls around,
Dogs throughout the West go for MPS Chunks. MPS is the #1 premium canned dog food in the West because it has a special combination of meaty taste dogs love. Get MPS Chunks for your dog today, or he might just get it himself. MPS Chunks, a special combination of meaty taste dogs love.
MPS Chunks.
On the next World of People, you'll see startling evidence that we are not alone. Party with Eric Estrada and learn how to spice up your love life. Tuesday at 3:30, followed by Eyewitness News.
Enter the world of the unhappy hooker, Tuesday night.
Here in Houston at Mission Control, the mood is certainly one of enthusiasm and celebratory. It's businesslike. They're working very hard to safe the orbiter, safing the orbiter, which means to make sure everything is all right, and going through a checklist with the astronauts Young and Crippen. Crippen, incidentally, referred to the shuttle as the neatest thing in the world.
He's got to be right. So. There was an ear-shattering cheer went up here. A lot of people had a lot riding on this, and the in-person sound of these people behind Max and me.
Of course, we're here with Hugh Downs, my colleague. One of the things we noticed earlier, Don Putty, flight director, made it clear to his team that they would have 15 seconds to celebrate, stand in their seats, clap and whatever. And we understand that's exactly what happened. 15 seconds, and then they return to their seats to do the hard job that they have to do.
Yeah, there is a lot to do inside the spacecraft right now. It's not as simple as pulling up and then waiting for your luggage someplace. These guys are going to be inside for a time while the aircraft is, while they continue to safe it. Among the things, there'll be some cooling down. For an odd reason, the spacecraft, the skin of that craft is hotter after the fiery re-entry, because the tiles tend to dissipate that heat, but they do it by seeping slowly through, and by the time it gets to the metal skin, the skin warms up more as the tiles begin to close down. So it's a little hot to the touch at the moment, and they've got to get out a certain way. And meantime, they can power down and do a little housekeeping chores, I imagine.
You know, Hugh, it's interesting to remember that this space shuttle that made such a marvelous mission today, 2 days, 6 hours, 20 minutes, and 52 seconds before touching down, had been called the Brick, a lead sled, aluminum Dumbo, a spruce goose of outer space, all of those derogatory terms, and I'm sure there are a lot of people taking them back about that.
They sure are. And, you know, one reason is one must be concerned about trouble. There was a tendency to focus on trouble. And since I've been here just these days with you and this group, I've learned a lot of things that were right about it that never got that publicity, because good news tends to be no news. That's a magnificent machine.
Incidentally, President Carter did already, he has sent former President Carter sent his congratulations on a mission well done. What else is going on inside the shuttle? 45 minutes seems to be a long time to those of us who are waiting to see the astronauts, of course, about now. They're going through a checklist, making sure the shuttle is safe, and then they will exit.
Apparently that checklist is long, Max. It seems to me like it wouldn't take 45 minutes to get out.
Incidentally, Hugh, the astronauts just sent this message. We're just waiting for someone to let us out.
Yeah, they can't walk out of that. That's got to be, the hatch has got to be opened up. And I imagine there are still things to do on the outside. One of the dangers, apparently, is there could be some liquid hydrogen left, I'm told. They want to be sure that, I imagine that part's been taken care of, that noxious gases that might be released and could be harmful to somebody. You notice the people were in spacesuits who came up, part of the convoy responsible for that.
Gene Cernan is, of course, there at Edwards Air Force Base. Gene, tell us a little bit more about those procedures.
Well, the procedures for egressing, as we used to call it, and still do, or getting a crew out of the spacecraft, are significantly thorough, and they're really built around safety considerations. An extra 5 or 10 or even 30 minutes for the crew to be in the spacecraft is not too much a price to pay to make sure that all the propellants that are used on that spacecraft while it's in space and re-entering are in a safe condition. You have high-pressure gases on some of those propellant tanks.
And you know, Gene, after the accident at Cape Canaveral before launch, which killed the 2 workers, when excessive nitrogen caused hypoxia, and they died of oxygen starvation, everybody's being super careful.
And without any wind out there, a lot of the heat now being dissipated as it sits on the ground, some of the gases and some of the burn particles from the tiles can tend to surround the spacecraft. And if there were a wind, they'd be blown away. So you're seeing men out there in spacesuits, effectively, so they can handle any gases that might be around. When you see them disappear and you see people come up just, you know, dressed without any gas mask or anything else on, then I think you'll see the the astronaut truck or van come out, and the backup crew go in, and the prime crew come out. Doctor, of course, will go in first.
There is a small amount of hydrazine fumes near one of the thrusters, Gene and Jules, and they are going to move the wind fan in there to blow the fumes away, to make sure that they get away from the hatch area.
And that stuff is very deadly, Frank.
Well, it's not deadly, it's explosive. Hydrogen is an explosive, and it has to be moved away.
It's also corrosive. If you get hydrogen on your fingers, it'll burn right through. But the line of the morning, Frank, has to be from our friend John Young about 5 minutes ago, which I think we missed. He, in his own witty style, quiet witty style, said, "We just became infinitely smarter."
Not a bad line at that. Well, we are still quite a ways from the exit of the astronauts from Columbia, and of course we'll be here for that. We have about 25 minutes to wait before they are able to come out. The doctor will go in and check them. And we'll continue with our coverage of the mission of Columbia after this from our local stations.
Johnny, you know more Europeans vacation in Spain than anywhere else?
Really?
They go to see the Alhambra or Granada and all the great art.
That's nice.
They love Spanish food. I am hungry.
Me too.
Johnny, there is more than castles in Spain.
I know.
And good sports too. It's all right. Lower prices on food, fares, and fine hotels.
Come to Spain. A lot more vacation for a lot less money.
You like?
I like.
Okay, it's all right.
Take a natural break, a Nature Valley break.
After sliding down a mountain,
we're ready for a break.
Nature Valley granola bars, a natural break.
100% natural. No additives, no preservatives in this tasty, crunchy snack.
We're all for it. There's oats and honey, cinnamon, coconut, peanut.
And almond.
Take a natural break, a Nature Valley break.
Now it's your turn.
Nature Valley granola bars.
America has become overly dependent on foreign oil. Suppose that foreign oil was cut back. To help control our energy future, we need to find and develop more oil, gas, other energy sources here in America. And we need to use less. If you'd like more information, it's available in the Energy Independence book, free from Shell. Shell believes there is an answer to our energy problems. It's to find more and use less.
There's Dan and Ellen Fields. He's editor of our local newspaper. He looks worried about his problem, dandruff. I wish he'd ask me.
Mr. Owen, what shampoo should Dan use for his problem, dandruff?
Ellen, how about Tegrin?
It works on itching and flaking?
In a national survey, 3 out of 4 dermatologists judge Tegrin's medication effective in fighting even problem dandruff.
Let's try it out.
How's Dan's problem dandruff?
Tegrin's terrific news, Mr. Owens.
Prove it to yourself. Tegrin works.
On All My Children.
When do you think you'll be hearing from Brandon?
They went to Connecticut to ask his wife for a divorce. They should be together right now.
I love you, Brandon.
And on One Life to Live.
No son of yours should ever fail at anything. Come on, Bo, stop. What? No, isn't it the truth? That's not in the rules. Maybe I'm not your boy at all.
All My Children, One Life to Live. Love in the afternoon.
Well, hail Columbia. The space shuttle has been on the ground here at Edwards Air Force Base after a flawless descent from orbit down through the Earth's atmosphere. The tiles worked. They stayed on, at least enough to bring them home. I suppose we'll get a more detailed check later on. And right now, they have been on the ground for about 28 minutes, and we still have some time to go. It's approximately 40, 45 minutes from the time they touch down until they're able to get out. As you can see out there behind me now, there's quite a bit of work going on around the orbiter, around Columbia. There's a convoy of vehicles that are specially equipped to make sure that it is safe for the astronauts to get out, also to examine whatever defects there might be in the space shuttle itself. But primarily, they are there to, this is a view, well, we had a view a moment ago from a helicopter, but this is primarily a process whereby they secure, if you will, the orbiter in order to make sure that the astronauts are all right to come out. The doctor, so far as I know, Craig Fisher, has not yet gone in. I guess they're going to make sure that all of the gases, that hydrazine gas that was near one of the thrusters, was blown away by the wind machine that they brought out, either advanced kind of windmill, to blow it all away from the hatch area where the astronauts will come out. They have a special kind of a portable white room. They've got things like the orbiter coolant transporter, an umbilical access vehicle, a couple of scape vans that they call them, to carry those people whom you saw wearing the space suits before. And they're still around out there on the ground now, too.
Frank, can you hear me?
Can we see the wind machine there now? Jules and Gene, are you...
One of the vehicles they're obviously using now is because there's so little wind, is that vapor dispersal unit, which that looks like a huge fan, parked 100 feet from the orbiter.
Frank, you must remember, we talked about the first flight of Columbia. This is also the first, although they've simulated it many times before, the first flight of the ground crew operations. And I can't help but believe they're being a little bit sensitive and going just a little bit slower than they normally might otherwise. And I think as we see future shuttle flights evolve, we'll see the ground crew obviously become more confident. John and Bob are ready to get out, as they said. They're I think the crew is always ready to get out before the spacecraft is ready to let them out. In this particular case, they had asked the ground how much APU, or auxiliary power unit, propellant they had used. The reason they're interested in that, a pilot is always very proud of how much fuel he uses in controlling his aircraft. The more sensitive control, the more precise control, the less fuel he will use, whether it's rocket fuel or whether it's this kind of fuel to drive the ailerons for the aerodynamic surfaces. And they gave him numbers between 52 and 68% remaining, and John said, whoopee, which means that they feel they did a very good job in controlling the spacecraft.
Mission Control also told them that the lift-over drag, also critical, was better than advertised, which
Did we see a spraying operation there a moment ago? I can't see it on my monitor here. The sun is just too bright, really. From your vantage point, what precisely are they doing right at the moment there?
Convoy team members now.
Yeah. These are the SCAPE personnel.
They're spraying them down with clean water just to get any collected fluids from the engines off them.
Now, the orbiter is going to be towed back over here to a hangar where the 747 will eventually, perhaps in 6 or 7 days, provided they complete all the checks here, be piggyback carried back to Kennedy Air Force, to the Kennedy Space Center in Florida, from where they left just a couple of days ago. And that, of course, is the whole idea, that this is a reusable spacecraft. I understand they might stop in Houston. They have to make a refueling stop anyway along the line. Houston would probably be a pretty good place to stop, let folks come out and have a look at it. The astronauts later today, by the way, will also go to Houston. President Reagan is sending Jim Baker, the Chief of Staff of the White House, who is from Houston, and will be very happy not only to go home, but to see the latest American heroes. When they do finally come out, they're going to have a physical examination. They'll see their families, and they'll make a brief appearance over here in the VIP area, I'm told. And then they will head for Houston. And there won't be a formal press conference where people will be able to ask them questions for about another week or so. But there will be time enough to ask and get answers to specific questions. The main one has already been answered here this morning, here in this California desert, when they came down right where they were supposed to come down and landed where X marks the spot. But I must say, despite all those calm, confident tones emanating from both the spacecraft and Mission Control, it was a moment. And there was some anxiety, understandably, when we were out of communications for about 20 minutes. I guess that was the most exciting part, waiting to make sure that they were going to respond. It always seems to be that way in space travel and the re-entry. They've been on the ground for quite some time now, but we still have to wait for, I don't believe the doctor has gone aboard yet, because they're not going to open that hatch until they make sure that all the potentially noxious fumes have been dispersed by the wind machine.
The crew is actually flying or controlling the spacecraft, but let me tell you, they are a captive audience. They are there to stay for the duration of that fireball and that entry interface. And when they came out, John sounded jubilant, and he sounded, of course, very professional. His first comments were something to the effect that everything went perfectly as advertised. And again, I think that's a tribute to the amount of training and time and confidence that they've had in what they've been doing.
No question about it, Gene. This isn't the sort of thing you do without exhaustive training, and I think a great many people were struck by the fact that the day after the mission was scrubbed in Florida the other day, they were right back on their pre-launch routine, out flying the Gulf Streams to practice emergency landing procedures. Is there a tile missing there, Gene? Can you see on the nose?
There's a dark spot that's circled on the screen right now, and it looks like it may very well be a tile. It's very difficult to tell from here at this point.
It looks most like it might be a popped tile, Gene. A tile that popped up from the adhesive fastening to the felt that holds it to the aluminum
Here
skin.
again, I would not be surprised to see a few tiles missing without any significant problems caused by those missing tiles. Obviously, the ones that were missing on the tail or the boat tail that we saw earlier that were lost during launch caused no problems at all.
That may have been a white tile, too, not black, which would not be a critical one. I think it does show that even if one or two does come off, that the dreaded zipper effect did not take place. There had been that concern, at least expressed by some, that if one came off, why the rest would just, you know, follow along. But obviously that didn't happen.
You know, some people might wonder why there's over 30,000 separate tiles rather than just a sheet of tile, but in fact, the spacecraft temperature differences are so tremendous that the aluminum skin underneath contracts and expands perhaps several times throughout the space flight from launch right on through re-entry. And if there were one sheet of tile, that tile would tend to, or have to expand with the aluminum, and it doesn't, so it would tend to crack. Therefore, you have blocks of tiles.
And no two tiles are the same thickness, Gene. They're computer-coded and created. They're aerodynamically a part of the aircraft skin. And if they were all the same thickness, the vehicle would weigh much, much more than it does now and be far more cumbersome.
Okay, Jules and Gene, thank you. Yes, go ahead, Gene. You had something else to add?
Where you were, when we saw the big bird come in, it's been called many things, as you said, but as it came in, you could almost hear a roar of engines that didn't exist. You could almost feel the airplane come through the final phases of the atmosphere just before landing, and I've got to tell you, it was pretty from here. I hope it was beautiful from where you were.
Oh, it certainly was. We caught sight of it just as it came in down low over the horizon. We're replaying it for you here now. And what a sight. And it looked just so steady, you know, so steady as a rock as it came in there.
Well, it was almost poetic in a sense. It was just like a big eagle spread out there, just gliding with ease and confidence to its final touchdown point.
What a moment.
I don't believe the nose or the tail or anything wavered a moment. It was like it was on a string or a track someone built out here in a desert for it to land on.
Well, 3 cheers for the tiles, and even the computers were speaking to one another today, so everything went well. We'll continue with our coverage of the mission of Columbia after this message and a word from our local stations.
Hey, Bill, does your mouthwash fight bad breath in the morning as long as Listerine?
Just as long. Almost as long. Long enough?
Listerine Strong works hours longer than your number 2 mouthwash.
And Listerine Antiseptic kills the germs that can cause bad breath. Today's a good morning.
Listerine. Is there any nicer way to say good morning?
When you want someone to think you're tops, try a bunch of Tootsie Pops. Give your Tootsie a Tootsie.
If a happy family is your goal, surprise them with a Tootsie Roll. Give your Tootsie a Tootsie. If you want to get someone's attention every time you stop, we've got the greatest invention. It's called a Tootsie Pop Drop. When you want to brighten someone's day, Tootsie's got a lot of ways. Give your Tootsie a Tootsie. Give your Tootsie a Tootsie.
Tuesday, when a killer stalks a pleasure cruise, will the hearts fall prey as his next victims?
You're about to take the Pepsi challenge. You know, I have 2 bottles of cola back here, and you don't know which is which.
No, I don't.
We have never met before.
That's correct.
Right, okay. Except at my sister's wedding, you know. But beside that, we have never met. Okay, now I'm going to pick this up and tell me which one you chose.
Pepsi!
You know, in tests like these nationwide, more people prefer to taste the Pepsi over Coca-Cola.
Pepsi's much better.
It's delicious. It's down nice and smooth. The taste is good.
It's great. Take the Pepsi challenge. Let your taste decide. Right, guys?
Right! I don't have much money. I got no fancy home. But I got someone who needs me to call my own. She got Candace, Candace. She got Candace, Candace.
Arson, the hottest crime in town. Tonight at 5 on Eyewitness News, Mark Coogan examines arson. See it before your home, your office, or someone you love goes up in smoke.
Enter the world of the unhappy hooker, Tuesday night.
ABC News live coverage of the first flight of Space Shuttle Columbia continues at Edwards Air Force Base. Frank Reynolds.
At 1:20 Eastern Time this afternoon and 52 seconds, 10:20:52 here on the west coast of the United States of America. And the first shuttle mission is a complete success. The Columbia is on this dry desert lake bed out here, and it has been there for some time now. We haven't received a precise word on when the astronauts are going to come out, but let's see, they've been down there for about 40 minutes, a little more than 40 minutes, so they should be coming out fairly soon if all the procedures are being followed and everything is working well. There was a slight problem they mentioned a few minutes ago about some fumes, hydrazine fumes, around one of the thrusters at the aft end of the shuttle, and they moved the wind machine in to disperse all those fumes before they bring the astronauts out. The crowd here, all around the place, those on the base and out along the desert and everywhere, was estimated to be around 200,000 to 250,000. I don't know how people can count with any precision those numbers. It's a little different here than it is in Florida, where you can see traffic jams. But it's not correct to say that this is the middle of nowhere. This is a flyer's paradise out here, but that's precisely why it is in such a remote area. Here in the Mojave Desert, but it must be the most beautiful sight that Crippen and Young, or the most welcome sight, I should say, that Crippen and Young have seen since they blasted off from the pad at the Kennedy Space Center a couple of days ago. Jules and Jane, they should be coming out pretty soon. Can you see from where you are, have they moved the, I don't think they've moved the van, or the portable white room up there yet, have they? And until they do that, why the doctor, Craig Fisher, can't go in?
It doesn't look like it has been moved, Frank.
We're a little far away to see because of the heat waves coming off the desert. It almost looks like they're in the middle of an ocean, and it's difficult other than a monitor, but I don't believe it's been there yet.
Well, it won't take too long.
You talk about a beautiful sight that they saw. You know, here again, I speak of the aviator, and that's what these two gentlemen are. It's nice to land heads up and feet down for a change rather than land on your back like we've done in the past. And we have evolved, really evolved into a new era, professionally, if you will, for the people that are in this program.
Frank, Mission Control did mention a moment ago they apparently had a cracked tile over the hatch, the crew hatch, through which the doctor has to go in and the white room has to be lined up with. So they wanted to have a better feel on any toxic gases in that area. And of course, as you can, I don't know whether you're outdoors or not, but there's a lot of breath.
Outdoors. Nobody's inside.
You're getting as burned as badly as we are then.
Oh yes, well that's a byproduct that I think we're all willing to take today. You know, John Young and Bob Crippen have now completed their mission, but it is a trailblazing mission, isn't it? It's the first, and it's going to be important if great benefits really follow. Some time ago, we asked John Young about the benefits, really, to all of us from shuttle operations.
I think it's a wonderful thing that we're doing here. Routine access to space is really important to developing science and technology in space, and to develop the kinds of things that we hope will lead to a whole new era, such as you speak of, colonization in space. With this vehicle, which has a tremendous capability, which we need terribly to have in the United States, it is right now, the vehicle is about, in my way of thinking, about 10 years ahead of what any other country in the world can do as far as I know right now. And it will enable us to do in space in the next 5 or 10 years what it take us 20 or to 30 years to do without this vehicle. And the country really needs it bad, both from a standpoint of developing high technology and discovering new things in science and science in space, for example, with a space telescope, and from a defensive standpoint. The country needs this vehicle very badly. It's going to provide a tremendous capability, and it certainly has it. And Bob and I are really looking forward to getting it operational as soon as practical. We think that one of these days the United States ought to have a permanently orbited manned space station up there. And with this vehicle, we'll be able to do it for 1/10 of the cost it costs to do it without it. And I guess the Russians think they ought to do it too, because they're doing it.
That was John Young talking about the future benefits of spaceflight and making note of the fact that the Russians are working on a reusable spacecraft. And you see here members of the escape team still in their specially designed suits. These are people who go in to make sure that any noxious fumes or any other danger that might be lingering around the spacecraft after its return from entry are dispelled, and it is safe for them to make their egress. Most of the vehicles have not yet really moved up very close to the, but I see some of them now beginning to move up, and I think that's the white room, yes. Can we see that out there now? Let's have another look at it, gentlemen, just before we go to Houston. The white room is moving up now. That's the portable white room. And it is through that the doctor, of course, will go in first, and then the astronauts will come out, and we'll be able to see them when they come out there. I believe they're having a little conversation. Let's listen.
Well, their picture as they come up. Very good. Well, this is known as a photographer.
I'm sorry, I don't want to override anything that is being said here. I'm bound to note that the communications here on the ground seem to be a little bit more muddy than they were in space.
They're just doing a little battering back and forth. I think there's a photographer and a doctor, as well as a backup crew or a backup crew in the white room.
Mission control, the white room being moved into place around the hatch.
Crippen said,
took it from the chopper.
When they told him the white room was being moved up, Crippen said, well, all right.
When the hatch is open, Dr. Craig Fisher from the Johnson unit.
This medical examination will not take very long. Doctor will merely check them out very quickly.
We'll take a quick look at the crew and then bring them out.
Frank, I think what we'll actually do is shake their hand and congratulate them and sort of fill in the square, and they'll be on out.
Tell them to take a couple of aspirin and call them in the morning if there's anything wrong.
That's right. Tell me if you don't feel well tomorrow. Now, they'll get a good physical when they get back to Houston, but there certainly won't be anything other than just
right, is that the doctor going in there now?
Yes, it is. This will be one of history's swiftest medical examinations.
And it doesn't sound to me like they need one anyway.
As you can hear, they're in They function flawlessly, and they're in good spirits, high spirits, to say the least. Young said about 3 minutes ago, you can't believe what kind of flying machine this is. It's really something special. And from a veteran, tough test pilot like John Young, that's one hell of a tribute.
Columbia. She sure came through, didn't she?
Well, she came through with a lot of help, Gene. A lot of help. We've got to pay tribute to the design, the engineering, and everything, but they're the people who deserve a great deal of credit, and a great many more who can't even be seen today all over the country. You know,
Frank, I've always said, and I did after Apollo 17, we stood on the shoulders of giants to reach the moon, some 220 million of them, and I think that's very applicable to Shuttle today.
What's moving in there now? Something else?
Well, I think that's a white room repositioning. I believe they probably didn't have it centered on a hatch exactly properly. Columbia City.
I'm sorry, Gene. Actually, they didn't position the white room right, huh?
No,
maybe the truck driver's not as good a pilot as John Young.
Well, John Young landed just about 2 feet too far, I guess.
Well, I hope he doesn't get any demerits for that.
They had a couple white lines on a runway for the white room, and John missed them by about 1.5 feet.
Oh, we've got a crowd going on board there now.
Well, he's got two astronauts, 2 members of a support crew going back, I think, Gordon Fullerton and Carol Bobko, and both of them, I think you'll see fly Shuttle in its operational test phase very quickly in the near future, are going aboard the spacecraft to complete the power down of the entire vehicle.
When is the next flight really scheduled? I mean, is there such a thing as a firm schedule, fixed?
Negative.
I think it really depended upon the success of this one. I would like to think we could turn around in the next 4 to 5 months, but that's really up to NASA.
But eventually, of course, it's supposed to be 40 to 50 flights a year.
That's a little optimistic, I believe.
Think so.
Yeah, I would not hold my breath waiting for that, Frank.
Convoy Commander reports that hatch operations are beginning now. Tow bar also being attached to Columbia's nose wheel.
Tow bar?
Yes, Columbia will be towed to off the runway to an area at the Dryden Flight Research Center.
All right, well, we're waiting now for the astronauts to actually come out of the Columbia. Let's go back to Mission Control in Houston and Max Robinson. Max?
Frank, at 6:31 Eastern Standard Time this evening, the astronauts and their families will arrive here in Houston at Ellington Air Force Base for a 10-minute welcoming ceremony. They'll be welcomed by James Baker, President Reagan's Chief of Staff, Congressman Ron Paul, Houston's Mayor Jim McCone, Dr. Alan Lovelace, who's acting administrator of NASA, Chris Kraft, director of NASA, and the 3 flight directors who ran this mission, Neil Hutchinson, Don Puddy, and Chuck Lewis will be there. Now, after that welcoming ceremony, the astronauts and their families will be escorted home, we're told here at Mission Control. There is no long isolation period, Hugh. That used to be the case with all of the previous astronauts.
When they first went to the moon, they weren't sure whether some kind of contamination might make them dangerous to be with other humans, but that was quickly determined that that's not the case.
Right. There will be a period of debriefing with various engineers responsible for each system on the shuttle, and of course, as Frank had mentioned, the astronauts we expect will hold a news conference in about a week.
They're going to wait that long?
I'm sure they can take their time.
Might as well. They deserve the rest.
The debriefing period, I'm sure, will be important in determining how long it will be before they hold a news conference.
Well, now is when they go to work. The debriefing period gets very extensive and very involved. They have to write pilot reports, and now they go back to being a professional pilot engineer, not just the flight type pilot. It's going to take probably a full week, I would imagine, to fully debrief all the controllers, all the industry people who were involved, and then, of course, write their own technical report.
I'd like to know what the pulse rate was at various points during the descent.
You talking about ours out here, Frank?
Well, I know mine was going too fast.
About 384.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I bet because the reentry itself was so slow, the time that they were coming through the atmosphere was over such a long period of time. I would have rather imagined it stayed well below 100.
Yes, I would think so too, Gene. You know, gentlemen, I can't help but have the feeling here that after all, that the country labored for 8 or 9 years, missed much criticism about overruns and problems and technical failures, and somehow today, here, and Sunday at Canaveral, we have seen the birth of a brand new technology. And for once, we did it first. The Russians weren't there.
Got the tow truck out here.
I think they're trying to get one of the choppers to move away.
Again, the helicopter on the right side of the orbiter. We prefer that it be moved to a greater distance or to secure operations.
You just heard them tell them to get the chopper out of the way.
Okay, let us know.
Yeah, he was down so low, the helicopter, but kicking up a lot of dust, which they don't really need. It doesn't take very much to do that. You can raise a cloud of dust just by driving a golf cart across this desert. It is pretty dry. Just a few weeks ago, they were talking about maybe it would be, there'd be some rain. It might, you know, it would be wet.
Who's going to put that plaque up there? Who's going to climb up the ladder? Or anybody?
Yeah, the helicopter's moved out of the way now. Well, they should be about ready. They've been down for what? 55 minutes. It's taking a little longer than planned to get out.
Being close to an hour, they have been ready themselves. The crew has to come out for quite some time. There's been a lot of chattering and bantering and talking back to mission control, and I think Bob Crippen said he was going to have a spot of tea. He probably was a little thirsty and made a little iced tea while he was in there.
Is there a traditional post-landing meal, Gene? As well as the steak and eggs that everybody has before they take off?
Well, no, but I tended to find a bottle of champagne floating around somewhere that I latched onto after my flights. But no, there really isn't. There's no tradition to the landing other than that there will be splashdown parties. I guess we have to rename the party. It's no longer a splashdown party.
Touchdown party.
Touchdown party.
In position near the ladder now. Dr. Fisher should be aboard that fan.
Well, come on, fellas, let's come out.
I feel like you do, Frank, and certainly like they do. I think you'll see them bouncing down those stairs, and I think you might see a salute or two out of these young men getting out of that spacecraft. Columbia looks alive, even as it sits there right now. It looks like it's got spirit and life to it. It's not something that's dead and over with. It just, I can feel something vibrant just looking at it.
It isn't like your Apollo 17 capsule was, Gene.
Well, it's still a little enduring.
In a museum.
How many missions could this particular machine fly? What do they anticipate at the outside?
The number is high. I think it was designed, Jules, if I'm not...
Supposed to fly 50.
50 or 60 missions.
Originally it was 100, Frank.
Yes, sir, we are, and we're eagerly anticipating your departure.
Well, we're still here, you know, and if we're going to get this thing operational, this is one of the parts we're going to have to work on a little more.
I think John shares the rest of our feelings. He said,
know what I mean?
He said, if we're going to get this thing up...
I'm pushing as hard as I can.
If we're going to get this thing up... If we're going to get this thing operational, we got to get the crew out of here quicker after landing.
This conversation is getting dangerous.
John doesn't think the passengers are going to wait this long to deplane. You realize we could have gone the whole orbit? They're doing pretty good, though. They're doing pretty good.
Well, those 2 days we waited in Florida appear to be well worth it, Jules.
Yep, sure did.
Yes, it was nice to know that the computers remained on speaking terms.
Flight reports that he doubts that you'll have to wait for your luggage when you get off.
Hey, he's probably right. That takes a long part. Well, there's no telling where that luggage is. Started out in the Cape, and they said they were going to bring it here, but you know how that goes. I bet Nygren is out there with our luggage right at this very moment.
Would you verify that you have your stubs or your bags on your body?
I knew I forgot something.
Frank, are you here to talk about the luggage?
Yes, but not very clearly. What did they say?
Well, flight control, mission control said, well, I don't expect you'll have to wait very long for your luggage on this flight.
Well, we can assure you that the folks there are doing their best to expedite this, John, and we can see him working in the White Room now.
All right, we know that. We know that. We just like to push every now and then.
Who is that we hear from Mission Control, Gene? It's not Joe Allen.
No, it's not Joe Allen at Capcom. I don't know.
I couldn't.
No danger on this mission of having the luggage shipped down to Chicago or anything?
Well, Frank, if it gets lost on this mission, it'll really get lost. There's enough room to carry a lot of luggage, though. You know, some of these lady astronauts should feel right at home if they're like the rest of the wives who travel with their husbands in the amount of luggage they carry.
No, Gene. We call it a sexist remark, I think. I know a lot of males, correspondents, and astronauts who carry a lot of luggage, too.
They should be about opening that hatch. I know a lot of people are trying awful hard to do the job right at this point in time, and we certainly don't want to make any mistakes.
Convoy commander reports they'll be ready to open the hatch shortly.
They're ready to open the hatch shortly. When there's some depresses, it depresses.
Well, a little Valsalva will take care of that trip.
Roger that.
Well, Frank, as in everything else in the space program, it's done by checklist and procedures, and even something that sounds as simple as opening a hatch of the spacecraft, they have got a procedure that they go by to make sure, again, that nothing is overlooked.
The hatch is coming open now.
In Columbia, Houston, we have word that the hatch is opening, and it's been great talking to you.
Same here, Rick. One fantastic mission. We'll hope to see you guys either tonight when we get back or tomorrow anyhow.
Okay, John and Crip. Good show.
They've been on the ground 1 hour, and they're about to get out.
And Rick, I'll be staying on comm here till we get one of the other guys on.
We copy.
Well, it's too bad they can't have bands playing and so forth when they make their first appearance. But, of course, that's possible only when you come down at sea and you can land in grand style as you did, Gene, on the deck of a carrier.
Well, that was exciting, but I think this will be equally exciting and certainly rewarding to them. You know, the period of time they've been in a spacecraft, although it has been long and they're anxious to get out, does allow you to get somewhat adjusted to the Earth gravity again, because soon after landing in Apollo, your legs were perhaps a little shaky because you came down so quickly in those parachutes, and then all of a sudden you were in full Earth gravity. However, in the shuttle, they go over that more gradually as they re-enter. It takes a longer period of time. In fact, I would rather guess that their adjustment to Earth gravity is much quicker, and by the time the shuttle actually touches down, they're probably ready to get out.
They've indicated that a couple of times already, haven't they?
Yes, they have.
Understandable.
Well, of course, then we got on a carrier which was bouncing around like a cork, and it, again, perhaps made your knees feel a little wheezy, and this desert out here is pretty stable this morning.
Side comment from Dr. Kraft here, we might have to go back to water landing.
Whoa!
That was a comment.
That took longer to get out.
Comment about we might have to go back to lunar landing.
No, that was
Why does Dr. Kraft like water landing?
No, that was a comment from Dr.
Just
Kraft.
a comment on time duration. But it'd be nice to get down on firm ground.
Roger that.
He's indicated that it's taken so long to get out of the spacecraft. It was said to suggest that we might have to go back to water landings as we did in Apollo.
And the crew...
Convoy commander reports the hatch is open.
Jokingly but firmly
Seals are being
protesting.
purged, and be a little while before they're given go for the exchange crew and the doctor to go aboard.
Go for going, I guess.
Crew is not composed of astronauts, however.
That's exactly it.
Crew mans Columbia while it is being towed.
They've given the okay to open the hatch when they can do it. They go for going.
I would expect that the crew now is off their communications headsets, so we probably won't be hearing any more from them at this point in time. And here comes John, if that's not... That's the ground personnel right there. Here he comes. There's John. A happy young man.
Yes, indeed. I've got the binoculars on him, and he does look like a happy young 50-year-old man.
You
Why
betcha.
shouldn't he be?
And after this flight, he's even younger. Well, you can see the detriments of space flight. He's doing pretty well, isn't he?
Yes, indeed. You can hear some applause in the background. That's from Mission Control, and we can even hear some applause way back over here at the on the edge of the desert.
Well, he forgot his co-pilot in there somewhere.
That's the convoy crew.
I think that bald-headed gentleman standing there in the blue suit might have been Tom Stafford. Tom was commander of this base after he left the space program, and that's Gordon Fullerton. I'm sorry. That's Gordon Fullerton,
who looks a good deal like Stafford.
Who will be flying one of the shuttle flights in the near future, I believe.
Stafford was commander of the base when the test flights were conducted out here.
When the drop test, that's correct.
And then went on to become Chief of Research and Development for the Air Force, and retired just last year with the rank of Lieutenant General.
You know who one of the great men of aviation is, and he's not very far away from me here. He's down here doing work for National Public Radio as Colonel Chuck Yeager, now General Chuck Yeager, the man who first broke the speed of sound. Where's Crippen?
John wants to make sure that the whole bird is still there. Well, I tell you, Colonel Yeager and his efforts contributed a tremendous amount to what we've seen here today, and I've got to believe that he's got feeling a little melancholy at this point in time.
What we're seeing, Gene, is the euphoria.
Yeah, where's Crippen?
Euphoria on Young after 7 years of preparing for this flight.
John wants to look at his airplane, by golly.
And verify that the whole Verret machine is there, which it most assuredly is.
What happened to the tradition, Gene, that the commander is the last one off?
Well, the tradition is the commander is, well, I don't know, they broke a little bit. On the moon, of course, the commander was the first one out and the last one back in.
Does Crippen have more to do, really? Switches to throw and flims to flam and so forth?
You know, I think he's off the air right now, and I think John's probably asking the same question. Where's my buddy that I've been with for 2 days? John is just on cloud 9. He isn't even walking on this desert. He's about 2 feet off the ground right now. That's George Abbey, the director of Flight Crew Operations, standing next to him. You know, you're seeing John Young talk more now than he probably talked for the last 2 days.
Well, he's the most experienced American in space now, isn't he?
He is. He surely is. He's flown almost one of everything and 2 of most. Twice in Gemini. He flew twice in Apollo. We flew together on Apollo 10. He's flown the Shuttle. He's walked on the moon. I'm not sure what there is left for John to do.
Well, you know, he probably he's going back to take off again.
Now he's going back on to drag Crippen out.
This is almost like a Sunday morning comic strip.
Flight Director Don Putty just informed his team that we have moved to the team at Dryden, and this flight control team can go back into exhilaration mode.
There's been a lot of comments about astronauts being programmed to react in certain ways. Believe me, each and every one I've ever known is an individual. And you're seeing John react like a very happy human being who has just done something that he felt is very accomplishing and very rewarding.
He's got a lot to say.
I've never seen John quite so outwardly expressive.
Never. I wish I could hear what he was saying. I could predict some of the things he's saying, but I wish I could hear him personally. Right now, he's going to say, "Get my co-pilot out of there."
Oh, I wonder why he isn't out.
I'd predict they're working up some elaborate gag.
No, I don't believe so. I don't believe so. No, sir, not at this point.
I don't think I'd want to test anybody's sense of humor after coming down through an experience like this. These are
Here he comes.
Here comes the co-pilot.
You're going to see another big, broad smile. And another healthy spaceman.
He's out 1 hour and 8 minutes after landing. Oh, that's nice to see them both on the ground. Another big cheer from Mission Control in Houston.
Well, I sit here very proud of those two guys, Frank. A little envious, certainly, but very proud.
They're going to get right into the astronaut van now.
I believe they're going to say a word or two in front of the audience out there just before they depart here.
Oh, you mean they're going to bring them over to the?
I had heard word that they were going to say just a brief word, perhaps in front of the crowd, the VIP area, before they press on.
OTC, CDR, the PLT, C to safe. I'm working on the CDRs now.
The astronaut van has been launched. It's moving. Before John Young left on this mission, he had some thoughts about it. And as you see him being carried across the desert here, let's listen to what he had to say before he left.
I've thought for about 10 years about how important this vehicle is going to be to the United States. There's no question in my mind that the capability to put 65,000 pounds in low Earth orbit, to put payloads up there, much more cheaper than we've been able to do it before, not having to throw away the booster, will absolutely revolutionize the way we do business here on the Earth in ways that we just can't even imagine. It's going to be a remarkable thing, I'll tell you that. And I've been thinking about it a lot. I really believe in it. It's quite a capability. It'll immeasurably improve the defensive capability of the country. It will help develop science and technology. I believe with the space shuttle, when we get it operational, we'll be able to do in 5 to 10 years what it take us 20 to 30 years to do otherwise in science and technology development in space that we couldn't do if we didn't have the space. You know, we wouldn't be able to do it if we didn't have the space shuttle and that payload capability. And I believe we'll do all those things. And the sooner we do those things, the better off the country's going to be. I believe that, too.
Frank, during this period of time, John was training for this flight. He was also acting and working in the design of this entire spacecraft with the test engineers, with the flight engineers, to make it not just flyable, but to make it capable.
Yes, Gene, we're seeing now the astronaut van moving. I'm not sure whether it's going to turn around and come over this way toward the VIP area. We hoped, however, that they are coming to a place where they'll be able to address the crowd and the nation and the world. Our coverage of Space Shuttle Columbia will continue in a moment.
Oh, did you take those?
You like them?
They're awfully good.
Oh, well, this is Polaroid's new Time Zero. You want me to take your picture?
Oh, could you?
That's what the camera's for.
This is fun. It's so fast.
World's fastest developing color.
May I keep this?
Then we won't have one of you.
You could take another.
Okay. Just kind of look over your shoulder. Ah, there, that's it. Hi.
Time Zero. You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. You make me happy when skies are gray. You never know, dear, how much I love you.
Everyone loves French's, the one and only Sunshine Mustard.
Please don't take my sunshine away. Delicious.
Expanding an aggressive business involves a factor of risk. To minimize it, you must have a firm grip on where you are and a clear view of where you're going. A Quantel business computer can help. For Quantel monitors your current status like any business computer, but only Quantel has Quick Plan, a financial planning aid that projects possible outcomes, so you don't commit resources unwisely. Quantel business computers, we let you look before you leap.
Hey, candy lovers, there's a new way to go. Granola clusters, an answer to candy.
These new granola clusters are a delicious, sweet, chewy treat. But I like them because they're 100% natural, made with things like honey, oats, natural sugars, with no additives or preservatives.
Hey, candy lovers, something new, granola clusters.
Granola's answer to candy. My answer to candy.
From Nature Valley.
Wednesday, the greatest...
Okay. I'd like to know where it's going to.
Well, we're back here at Edwards Air Force Base, and the astronauts have just completed the magnificent journey all the way across the desert floor from the site where Columbia rolled to a stop. They were in the van, and still are, and they are going now to, I believe, a medical facility where they will be given a further medical examination, and then perhaps after that they may have a word or two to say, but we're not exactly certain about that. But anyway, they are now off the desert, the dry lake bed. They are on the base, the NASA Research Center here, and they're pulling in there to a medical facility. Now let's have another look, because some of you may have missed it, of the landing of the Space Shuttle Columbia as it came down at 1:20 this afternoon, a little more than an hour and 15 minutes ago, 1:20 Eastern Time, nosing down beautifully.
Columbia, the gem of the skies. We have surely progressed. That is a T-38, two T-38 chase planes right behind it, and they are right close, so you can tell the difference in size. The landing gear should open. There it is. The landing gear is put down manually by the crew. Very critical timing. 19 seconds before the plane touched down.
Two switches, one to on, one to drop it. And if it doesn't drop manually, you got an explosive charge backup.
This moment right now for John, when he touches down, and for Crip, have got to be a very, very sensitive moment. They are home. They have touched Earth. They have come back.
And what a beautiful, sensitive landing, Gene.
When you consider the weight and the size of that vehicle and the manner in which it's the tenderness of its touch as it came into for landing.
75 tons. And you have to flare it exactly right, or you'll bounce the gear. You'll stall it, you can even destroy it.
It actually didn't take very long to roll to a stop either, though, did it?
No, and I'm not sure he really applied too much in the way of brakes on that vehicle.
Yeah. This is a videotape replay now of the first astronaut, John Young, coming out of the orbiter. He bounced out, as you see. They were on the ground for, about an hour before actually coming out. And Young then proceeded to just walk all around the place and have a look at his spacecraft. He's heading back there toward the aft assembly.
It's a habit pattern. You get out of an airplane, particularly one like this that you've flown on a special kind of mission. You want to see it was good to you. You want to see how good you were to it in flying it.
You want to see what the tires look like, what the fuselage looks like. Were there any obvious signs of damage?
All right, this is a live picture now. The van is parked there at, you can see that flat square building there. That's a medical facility where we understand they will undergo a somewhat more comprehensive medical examination than they had earlier. The first person to go on board the Columbia was the crew physician, Dr. Craig Fisher, but he merely verified that they were all right, and that was already known anyway. Here's a picture of the parking lot and some of the buildings at the Dryden NASA Research Center. They share this facility with Edwards Air Force Base. Edwards is where the test pilot school is located, and this is the Dryden Flight Research Center operated by NASA. Let's see if we can see Bob Crippen coming out of the shuttle. Once again, we saw John Young. Crippen was in there for quite some time, longer than John Young, but he finally, too, bounced out. A smile from ear to ear, and no wonder.
We now have another new space veteran. Bob's comments throughout the flight, I tried to listen to him very closely, were professional approach to flying a machine, but there were moments of ecstaticism as he was looking at the Earth in the sunrises and experiencing those things that you have to experience, a little bit of fun now and then.
Sure. This is a live picture now, Gene, and the astronauts are not only getting a quick medical checkup here, but also they're being reunited with their families.
And they're supposed to fly back to Houston later today in one of the NASA planes with their families.
Well, the schedule also calls for them to go over to the VIP tent and be greeted by some of the people there. Secretary of the Air Force, Vernon Orr, is there, and there are quite a few others.
I'm not exactly sure how far they are away from that tent, but I feel certain that they will somewhere here say a word or two during their greetings.
Well, they're a good long ways from what is officially described as the VIP tent. I can't believe they're going to drive them all the way down there.
I think one thing they'd want to do, and will do during the physical, is to get out of the spacesuits, the pressure suits, and put on flight coveralls to be more comfortable.
Here is the crowd at the VIP center. Quite a few people have gone away, naturally, once the Columbia came down and they knew that the mission had been successfully accomplished. But there's still lots here. And if this is a shot of the VIP area in that kind of circus tent, or garden party sort of tent, a lot are there.
You know, Frank, we're out here in the middle of the desert, but Edwards Air Force Base itself has got quite a history of test flight experience, which has contributed to the flight of the shuttle. Many, many things have happened here over the years to contribute to the ability and the development and eventual flight of something like Columbia.
It goes way, way back, Gene, to the early 40s when it was a secret Army Air Corps test site where the first U.S. jets were flown during World War II. Then it became Edwards Air Force Base in the late 40s when Major Glenn Edwards, a heroic pilot, was flying one of the first flying wings and got killed and crashed.
Gentlemen, let's go to Lynn Scher, who is down at the VIP area right now. Lynn, what was the reaction there? The same as everywhere, I suppose.
Oh, absolutely, Frank. I think these people willed the plane down exactly the way they willed it up into the air in Florida at launch 2 days ago. This is a huge crowd, as you can see. There's been a little bit of reaction here when the people up on the podium started to move the lectern to face the other way. The camera people, the news media, all, of course, wanting that terrific view of the astronauts when they appear here. Nobody is quite sure when they are appearing. We were originally told an hour and a half after landing, which would make it about 12 o'clock California time. We're not quite sure if they're going to stick to that schedule or not. We are going to hear from both of the astronauts. Their wives will be here. Governor Brown will be here. Isaac Gillum, the director of Dryden Flight Research Center, will be here. Dr. Alan Lovelace, the acting administrator of NASA. Secretary Orr of the Air Force, as you mentioned. And General Robert T. Marsh, who's the personal representative of the Air Force Chief of Staff. I should tell you that I was speaking a little bit earlier with director Steven Spielberg. He's the man who directed Close Encounters of the Third Kind. He said it was absolutely fabulous. He loved seeing it. But when I asked him whether it would turn up in one of his movies, he said, well, it already had in the movie Moonraker. Similar kinds of situations. He said that he's working on a movie that doesn't quite incorporate this, but that it was fabulous to see science fact imitating science fiction. There are a number of other celebrities in the audience here. I don't know quite how many we'll get to talk to later. Governor Brown, of course, most interested in the space program. He has proposed, among other things, a kind of a joint Soviet-U.S. space station traveling up in orbit that would be able to monitor things on Earth and be a kind of a peacekeeping force. We'll try to chat with him later about that. There are apparently some movie stars here. They have not wandered out into this part of the viewing area. I think they've stayed inside the tents. Perhaps buying souvenirs. There are souvenir stands inside. Perhaps nibbling away on some of the goodies that are being offered to them. At the time of the landing, however, people were strung out along the ropes right along the edge of the landing strip, and they did cheer just the way everybody else cheered. They let out a yell when that plane touched down.
Could you
Frank?
see it? Could you see it, Lynn, from a distance away as it came over the horizon?
Absolutely. We saw it almost exactly the same time you did. Of course, we heard the boom the same time you did. We're only about 1.5 miles away from your location. But we saw it coming in, and, you know, we had, I think, a slightly better view than you did because we saw it going across right in front of us, and that trail of dust behind it was absolutely fabulous. I saw on the monitor, and I know that you took the shots from our camera from time to time. As you keep saying, it really does look like a lake out there. And except for that trail of dust, it could have been making an aquatic landing.
Well, the astronauts, thank you, Lynn. The astronauts are still in a building here in the base where they are undergoing another medical examination, or a very brief one, and being reunited with their families, and then eventually they will appear to talk to us. Lynn, I want to make note of the fact that you prepared a report on the future uses of the shuttle, including those so-called getaway specials, where for a relatively modest amount of money, people can actually put experiments on board future shuttles. So I think, Lynn, you'll be overjoyed to know that we're now going to play that report. This is on the getaway specials, how you can send something into space and conduct experiments.
These goldfish are from New Jersey. These beetles from the forests of Idaho, Montana, Wyoming. This beaker full of tiny brine shrimp comes from the Great Salt Lake in Utah. And these ants, residents of a colony in a science class in Camden, New Jersey. But all these creatures share the chance to go into space as passengers on one of the space shuttle flights of the future. They will be the subject of scientific experiments, and they will travel inside one of these containers, now being constructed at a factory in Ogden, Utah. The canister with its experiment is the Getaway Special. Technically, small self-contained payloads designed to put space within everyone's reach, and named after the bargain travel fare once offered by a commercial airline. The specials cost from $3,000 to $10,000, depending on the size of the canister and the weight of the experiment. Already, more than 300 Getaway Specials have been booked for flights starting in the fall of 1982, most of them from industry. But one of the most interesting uses is educational. Several students from Weber High School in Pleasant View, Utah, are working on projects that will go up in one of the earliest flights. Senior Bruce Moore plans to hatch brine shrimp aloft and record their activities with a specially mounted camera to observe the effect of weightlessness on their growth and genetic development, something he couldn't do with a human astronaut.
We can't take an astronaut up there really and study that much about him. We can take a lot of body functions, but he's got other things to do, so we can't put him out in a little 5 cubic foot container and see what happens to him. So use these instead.
Bruce's classmate, Chris Schmitz, will send up 3 kinds of bark beetles in small pieces of tree stumps to see if their usual paths of boring through and destroying wood are altered by their journey through weightlessness.
I hope that I will find that they are affected by gravity, because from there, the application would be to find out what it is that orients them, if it's hairs on their head or a chemical that they release, and then to develop something that will disrupt that orientation.
So if your experiment works, you could help get rid of these pests?
Possibly.
The Getaway Specials were designed in part to get more people involved in the space program, particularly more young people. As a result, the students at this high school in Utah aren't the only ones who have begun making the connection between life here on Earth and life out in space. In Camden, New Jersey, almost the entire school is working on shuttle-related projects, particularly Mr. Reese's 11th grade science class, creators and caretakers of the space-bound ant farm. The idea is to see how an entire social system handles the weightless environment, and students are getting ready for the trip by working with the ants themselves, by learning to operate computers to program the payload, even by functioning as engineers to design the experiment within the confines of the canister.
This project has brought us closer to space. Space, it always seems so far, but now it seems closer.
And what we want to do is get them on camera and see their daily activities, what each ant does from day to day.
See, we can't put suits on ants. So whatever we send up in there, they have to be already prepared for such a voyage.
The Camden youngsters are also working on an experiment with goldfish to see how weightlessness affects the direction they swim. These New Jersey projects are being funded by RCA. Those in Utah largely by Gil Moore, a one-man pep rally who's donated space in some of the 5 canisters he's reserved and is urging everyone who will listen to participate.
In the Getaway Special program, your own ideas can be flown, and I would like to get you fired up in doing things, and what I'd particularly like to get you to do, if you don't have ideas of your own, I want to use you as the do-it arm for the kids in high school who don't have...
It's particularly rewarding to Gil Moore since he bought the very first Getaway Special NASA offered. And since it's his son's project with the brine shrimp, that will probably go on it.
The Getaway Specials. Hurry now, get your order in. Not going out of business, apparently, after today. Well, you saw Lynn Shure on that recorded report. Now we are going to bring you Lynn Shure live, which is even more of a treat. And she has with her someone who has actually bought one of these Getaway Specials. Right, Lynn?
I absolutely do, Frank. With me right now, Steven Spielberg, the director of Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Steve, you have a Getaway Special. What are you going to do with it?
I'm going to think about it for another 8 months and then decide in the last 4 weeks what I'm going to send up. Having the space is thrill enough right now.
Who gave it to you?
It was actually, I believe it was a gift from NASA and Michael Phillips, who produced Close Encounters.
What for? They thought you in particular would enjoy sending something up?
I guess they thought that I would have a lot of ideas what to send up, and when they asked me what I would like to send up, I said I'd like a camera to photograph the other canisters. So,
Do you think there's going to be a movie coming out of whatever comes out of your Getaway special?
I don't know, but I want to see it before and after. I want to be there when it comes down. I'd actually like to go up and be behind the camera photographing up there.
Not possible yet.
Not
Okay,
yet.
Steve Spielberg and his Getaway special. Frank?
Okay, Lynn, thank you very much. Well, the astronauts are still in the building here where they are being given a medical examination and, as we said, meeting once again with their families. And before too long, we expect them to come out, make an appearance, and have a few words to say to all of us. So our coverage of Space Shuttle Columbia will continue in a moment.
It's no secret a lot of people believe American cars aren't filled as well as Japanese or European cars. Well, I'd like to take you through this factory to show you the spirit of our workers, the level of our technology, the quality of our cars. Then no one can say our cars don't stack up. We can't take all of you through this plant, but we can give you $50 to test drive and compare our cars to qualifying competitive cars, and we'll pay you no matter whose car you buy. We're not foolish, we're confident.
The new Chrysler Corporation.
Johnny, you know more Europeans vacation in Spain than anywhere else? Really? They go to see the Alhambra or Granada and all the great art. That's nice. They love Spanish food. I am hungry. Me too. Johnny, there is more than castles in Spain. I know. And good sports, too. It's all right. Lower prices on food, fares, and fine hotels.
Come to Spain. A lot more vacation for a lot less money.
You like? I like. Okay. It's all right.
Well, what a lovely day it's been here at Edwards Air Force Base in California. Really has been kind of a lovely day. Hot. Yes, it's hot. It's always hot here. I am told on what I am beginning to suspect is not so reliable authority that it's only 76 degrees out here. It feels a little bit warmer than that to me right now. But there's a kind of a balmy breeze blowing across, 15 miles per hour or so, so it's not so bad. It was even less than that when the astronauts made their return. And, of course, it was planned that way, too. Most of the fancy, very sophisticated flying that you see out here is done in the morning when the winds are at their minimal. And in the afternoon, things kind of quiet down a bit. But, boy, sometimes out here in the morning, you can just see almost every kind of aircraft available, you know, or imaginable in the sky whirling around. Let's see a replay of the latest hero of aviation and of the space age, the Columbia, coming back in for a landing. That happened at 1:20 this afternoon, Eastern Time. It came in right on schedule. The very steep glide slope of the shuttle was tracked very closely by cameras both on the ground and in the space plane, or in the chase planes, I should say. There it comes into view. There it comes down. What a sight it was, too. Gee, that's a head-on shot, you know, facing right at it. Wheels touchdown, and they counted them down. The chase planes counted them down in terms of, finally, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 1, boom. Touchdown. Well, as I said before, Edwards Air Force Base is really quite a tremendous place. I was out there a couple of years ago, wandered around and formed some conclusions, and I thought maybe you might be interested in seeing the thoughts then.
Behind this lonely sign lie more than 300,000 acres of perhaps the most barren and forbidding real estate in the country. The hot desert winds sweep across mile after mile of sand and sage and almost nothing else. But more than the wind moves here. Like some sort of great desert shark, a plane slides through the empty landscape, ready to fly. To fly, that is why men come here. The flight line at Edwards Air Force Base is an airplane buff's paradise. Here, the most advanced and sophisticated planes in the world are flown and tested and made to perform almost beyond a designer's dream. or nightmare. This is what men do to and with airplanes at Edwards. The United States Air Force Flight Test Center. In the foreground, the first American jet ever to fly. Edwards was the perfect place to test it in secret in 1942. The base motto, Ad Inexplorata, toward the unknown. The Air Force has its test pilot school here. For nearly a full year, students, not all of them men, but all of them already superbly skilled, combine work in the cockpit and the classroom. Edwards is in the desert, but more than 9,000 people live here in a patch of green and shade surrounded by sand. Inside the living area, you might be in any middle-class suburban community. But of course, there is a difference. For here, it is not the land, but the sky that draws them. To fly. To fly.
And do they fly? They do indeed. The astronauts are still in a building over here in a complex of buildings just beyond the flight line of Edwards Air Force Base. We noticed it's kind of an interesting thing a few minutes ago. An Eastern Airlines plane pulled up. I don't know whether that's here to take some of the dignitaries. It's a 727, the sort of shuttle on which people are jammed in like sardines to make the move from Washington to New York and Boston, back and forth. So it's here maybe to observe the landing of a different kind of shuttle. Well, we expect them to come out very shortly. At least that's what we're told. And they will then go and down here to this VIP tent, we understand, and speak to the people who have been waiting there for them. There are quite a few dignitaries, political figures, and others, representatives of the administration, and of course of NASA, who are very happy to confer their congratulations upon them in person. Then later today, the astronauts will go to Houston, to the Johnson Space Center, where they will meet with the people who monitored every second of this operation, and to whom, of course, so much of the credit for the success of the mission should rightfully go. They'll get a big reception there, no doubt. And then begins the debriefing process, as Gene Cernan noted some time ago. They'll have a lot to tell the people who put this thing together. And there's the crowd at the VIP center waiting for them to come down. They'll have a lot to tell the people who put this mission together, who designed the various instruments and the machinery and the technological gadgetry that went into getting it off the pad so spectacularly the other day at the Kennedy Space Center. Hard to imagine that there could be a more fantastic and engrossing sight, really, than that was the other day, as it descended up out of that tremendous cloud of vapor. For a second there, it looked as though everything had just blown up on the pad, and then up, up, up came that tip of the external tank, the mother fuel tank that provided so much of the power to lift the orbiter on up into orbit. And Max Robinson has been spending all these anxious hours there, and exhilarating hours, I know too, Max, at Mission Control in Houston.
Frank,
what are your thoughts?
especially exhilarating when you had touchdown. Exhilaration that you could feel in Mission Control with the 15 seconds of celebration, but the discipline to go back to their jobs. They handed over control here at Mission Control about 2:30 p.m. About 2:30 because someone forgot to look at the clock. They were so exuberant, shaking hands and talking about the success of the flight. Incidentally, we said earlier that the astronauts and their families would arrive here at 2:30, or that is at 6:31 Eastern Standard Time. That's been delayed somewhat, and we're not sure exactly what time they will arrive, but it is open to the public at Ellington Air Force Base.
May give them time to wind down a little, Max. You know, I can understand that feeling, although I never had any kind of high compared to those guys landing that, but the last thing they would think of doing would be to sit down and relax. They will unwind in time, but at first, the only thing John Young could do would be get out there and walk around, and you know the feeling.
I would think it would take a lot of time, a long time to come down.
It'd be a long time before they come down from that. They got it to the ground. A thing that interested me was 12 years ago, there were procedures at NASA that might be holding now. on making out personal expense accounts, and you had to make a detailed report on where you'd been.
They make out those, too?
This is in Buzz Aldrin's book. He said he billed, and it was a serious report, where he had been and what it had cost him, the expense to him. Right. He mentioned that he had military aircraft from Houston to Canaveral. From Canaveral to the moon, there was government transport, and from the moon back, military transport back to Houston, and then his car to his house, and it cost $37. That's what he recovered. Right?
Not a bad trip. One other thing we might mention, here at Mission Control, in the control room, they were putting up the plaque for Columbia. That plaque joins 31 other plaques, 31 space missions that have been controlled out of the Johnson Space Center Mission Control here in Houston. Frank?
Thank you, Max, and thank you, Hugh. And I have here with me a young man who was eagerly looking forward to one of those flights. He is Colonel Guy Bluford of the United States Air Force, and he is an astronaut. Colonel Bluford has been sitting here with me this morning, providing invaluable help in telling me what was going on and making sure that I didn't make too many mistakes, and I'm grateful to you, Colonel.
It's good to be here, Frank.
But I'd like to know now, you're going to fly one of these things one of these days.
Yes, I'm definitely looking forward to it.
And you must feel a little bit better about it now after seeing it come down.
I agree, and I'm really, really pretty thrilled right now. I think we've really demonstrated that we can really fly this vehicle. Now it's time to go to work.
What is going to be your job when you go up? Do you know?
Well, I'm going to be a mission specialist, which means that I'll be handling cargo, satellites, and doing experiments in orbit. And I'm really looking forward to doing that.
Yes. Do you have any idea when?
No, I really don't. We still have to learn a lot about the vehicle. We still have 3 more flight tests that we need to do on the vehicle. But I suspect once we get into the operational phase, starting next year, and, I can start looking for possible flights like that.
Well, I've looked over your bio, and you've been flying planes for quite a while now, and you've been doing all sorts of exotic things with them and teaching other people. How long have you actually been in training as an astronaut?
Been in training about 2.5 years, and find it really quite challenging.
Really?
Just to learn all the systems and all you really need to know to be an astronaut.
So even though you're you're a command pilot, aren't you?
Yes.
Even though you do that, when you have that kind of capability, you still got a lot to learn when you get into the space business.
Definitely. There's still quite a bit to learn, even about the vehicles.
I'll stay right here with us, Colonel, because I want to have a conversation with Gene Cernan, who knows what it's like to rocket off a pad and to come back, not necessarily in a space shuttle, but as he did as the commander of Apollo 17. The astronauts, let me just remind you, are still in a building over here just beyond where we are, where there are buildings. There's nothing out here but sand and desert and mountains about 100 miles away. And we expect them to come out very soon and head on down to the VIP area where they're supposed to talk to people and have a few words and tell us in their own words what they think of this mission, although I suppose it's fairly easy to expect just exactly what their feelings are. Gene, what advice do you have to give to this young man who's going to ride this thing into space?
Hang in there. It's well worth it. It's a long wait, a lot of hard work, but I tell you, there's no more motivating experience in your life than the opportunity to do what you just saw being done by John and Crip. We've got a number of outstanding young people in the space program. I don't like to be called an old astronaut. I don't feel I'm quite that old, but I've been fortunate enough to have some pretty unique and exciting experiences, and I think it's time now to get some young talent, some new talent. I'm just amazed at the capability and background, both professional aviator type and educational activity and background that the young and new astronauts have. I'm impressed. I'm looking forward to the day they do get their hands on this vehicle, because when you match the two, then the marriage will really be complete.
Well, it is important, too, that people who are of a relatively young age go into this program, I gather, because there is so much to learn. And you really can't start too late in life, can you?
No, you really can't. And I have to agree with you, Frank. There is quite a bit to learn about this plane in order to fly it the way it needs to be flown.
Well, you went into aviation really right out of college, didn't you, Colonel? I mean, you took your degree in aerospace engineering?
That's right. And went into the Air Force and flew airplanes right after that.
You flew them everywhere. You flew them in Vietnam and everywhere. Yeah.
That's
But this, why can't you, I shouldn't put it this way. I was going to say, why can't you find out when you're going to actually make your mission? It would seem to me that would just drive you crazy, going through all this training and not knowing when you're going to get it. Are you certain, for example, now, that you're at the stage of your training where you're going to get a mission.
Well, I feel that I can fly right now, Frank, but still there's a lot I need to learn.